And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
What's up, everybody? Attention to roll call. Welcome to the finest Unfiltered. Welcome to Wednesday morning. Just want to say we're back up on YouTube. Not really sure what happened, but going forward, we're not going to be showing any firearm whatsoever other than a firearm in a cop's holster. Like, obviously, we're not allowed, for whatever reason, to report the same news that everybody else is reporting. You guys were here with us on Monday. We got pulled down for absolutely no reason. Appealed. The appeal was denied. They temporarily, assuming it was a temporary suspension from live streaming, and we were back. We're able to live stream today. Still trying to get access to speak with someone over at YouTube to clear all this up, how we're supposed to be a law enforcement channel and not show interactions when everybody else is doing that. Same videos. So apologies to you guys, whoever was on here. Marlon did go back, edit out that video and re-upload it for those of you that missed on Monday. So I think we got an important conversation today. Eric's obviously still out, probably be out for another week or so. Looking forward to him coming back. And what's up, Marlon?
Yo, morning, guys. Morning, chat. Who we got in there so far? Morning, Detective Nolan. Stay trained up. Patrick Donahue. Tabitha. I guess is that you, Tabitha Foster? Yes, I see it now. Amazing Ann, KB and NYC, Phil the Heater guy. Yeah, good morning, guys. Terry Murnane, good to see you as always. Mike Freed. Yeah, guys. I'm not gonna say happy Wednesday. You know, we're almost there for Friday. So, yeah, we got a lot going on in New York City. You guys think you guys always think we're gonna run out of content, do you? Well, guess what? New York City, there's always something going on. And yes, there's something big going on right now in Manhattan. And I think if it actually happens, and I'm saying if that building actually, if it actually collapses on its own, or if it gets taken down, that's big problems. And not just that building will come down, okay? It might be Mamdani's entire mayorship that'll come down with it, and I'll explain as we go through the conversation.
Yeah, so normally we talk about NYPD issues. Normally we wouldn't get into. We talk about NYPD issues. We talk about law enforcement nationally. We talk about politics locally and nationally. Today we're going to talk about building, because I think politics locally in New York City, which has caused the downfall of the NYPD, which has diminished public safety in New York City and has destroyed people's quality of life in New York City and destroyed many people's careers, good, competent, moral, God-fearing people's careers in New York City, is the cause of what we're witnessing in Midtown. So there's a lot of things here. It's going to be a really in-depth conversation. So I hope you guys stay with us. I think first off, we got to look at what occurred, right? What occurred in Midtown. So the largest, what's being touted as, and it actually is, I'm not going to say it's being touted as, it is the largest undertaking of its kind right now, was occurring at the old Pfizer headquarters. That headquarters was located at 235 East 42nd Street, former Pfizer headquarters. It's originally 33 stories. There was going to be a conversion that was going to add 15 new floors on top, bringing it to 48. The conversion is converting office space to residential space. This was only made possible by the city of Yes, which happened under Eric Adams. There's also an adjoining project right next to it with the adjoining Pfizer building, 219 East 42nd Street. That's originally 10 stories. And they're looking to add an additional 19 floors to that, making it 29 stories. As this expansion's happening, as this as this commercial to living space / retail along the bottom is happening, there was a huge structural issue, not in the project that was up top on The building in question is 235 East 42nd Street, right? That's the building where the structural concerns happened. But where it happened, where it began to happen, I believe was on the 21st floor. So that is not the addition where the collapse is happening. That is the main building itself. And we're going to bring you the press conference. We're going to go through that because I think a lot of what's being said at the press conference and a lot of what's occurring now is very dangerous. And I don't think that New York City's out of the woods yet. I hope for the construction workers and all our first responders' sake that everything turns out very smoothly. However, the language coming out of New York City officials, the language coming out of Department of Buildings and the fire department should be very concerning to everybody because, again, we show you time and time again where they downplay a lot of situations that are occurring, and I believe this is being downplayed as well. There are crews inside of that building right now working. We were told by the Department of Buildings that the building is stable. I have a lot of questions about how they determine that. I have a lot of questions about what they're going to do to shore this building up. And I have a lot of questions about what they're going to do to go forward. And we're going to go through all of that. So Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yo. Yeah. See, we might be talking about a building today, but we've actually talked about all of this before. It's just, it hasn't been outright about a specific building or buildings in general, but we have talked about this. See, it's all connected. It's all connected to the corruption, malfeasance, and you know, I said online, the complacency of the city, right? This is all connected to the corruption we've seen before. And, you know, as we get through the conversation, I will play you some videos about you know, the past, including the indictment of one of the commissioner of buildings, right? We've all talked about this before. This is connected to the city of yes, and it's connected to the desperation of the city, and it's connected to opportunists who are using the desperation of the city for their own self-interest and for their own benefit. And you know, when you look at the issues, you can see where the threads connect to different other prior conversations we've had, including conversations about the pension fund, conversation about the shortage of cops. All of that is tied into this because this is all about money, and the city is desperate for money, and they're desperate to plug their budget deficits. And you know, in this case, that desperation has pushed many people into a position where you're seeing the outcomes now. So we haven't outright talked about this, but we really have talked about this. And you guys, if you wondered why we kept talking about commercial real estate in the past, right? Well, you're about to find out, and that talk is going to become very vocal in the coming months as a consequence of this building.
Yeah, I mean, so originally when I hear it, I always go to incompetence, right? I always say like how our elected officials are completely incompetent, how we have people in charge of institutions and agencies that have no business being there. I think that, you know, when you look at Department of Buildings Commissioner throughout, it's a political patronage job. You know, now look, do you need to be a structural engineer? Do you need to be an architect? Do you need to have ran a construction company? Maybe you don't, but maybe you could have some solid executive administrative experience before getting placed there. You know, we had, like Marlon said, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Eric Ulrich, who basically had no business being in that position, winds up getting indicted on the Eric Adams place there. Then the fake Republican / fake conservative Jimmy Otto, who had absolutely no business being there whatsoever, no experience. And now the new Department of Buildings Commissioners there under Zohar Mandani. I don't have his name right off the top of my head, but we'll play him on he'll be at the press conference. And you know, right when I look at that, I'm like, well, shouldn't people come in and actually make sure that Department of Buildings is operating competently, that they're performing their job? So, you know, it has came out in reports that there were numerous violations occurring, one of them being that the construction occurring wasn't following the plans, the blueprints. Now, this is very, very dangerous work. You're adding a ton of weight onto an existing building. So the structure of the building itself that was originally, what I say it originally was? It's originally 33 stories. That building was built to hold up the weight of 33 stories. To add another 15 floors on top of it and make it 48, now you have to shore up that entire building. That needs a lot of engineering work. That needs a lot of work. So now that building's empty. There's no commercial people in there. There's no residential people in there, and they're working on it. But when you're doing a job like this in the middle of Manhattan, where if something goes wrong, you're talking thousands of lives at stake. There's probably hundreds of workers in there alone. So all of their lives, and then everyone that's around that building. I mean, we're talking Midtown Manhattan, 42nd and 2nd, right down the block from the UN. I mean, this is how many, right by Grand Central Station. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people pass there every hour. I'm like, I drove past it several times last week. It's very dangerous work. This has to be done right the first time. It has to be measured over and over again. And a lot of people push back at the city of Yes, and I think they push back at the city of Yes for I don't want to say the wrong reasons, because they were correct. When they said bringing the city of Yes, which the city of Yes was going to allow conversions like this to happen, was going to allow zoning changes so that commercial real estate can now be changed into residential. They talked about a lot of things, like about changing the parking of the neighborhood, about is there going to be enough parking spots, is the infrastructure ready for these amount of people, such as far as schools, hospitals. It's going to change the entire makeup of the neighborhood, bring all of this extra foot and vehicular traffic into the neighborhood. Could the neighborhood handle that? Are there jobs for these people? These are all concerns. But the real concern here should have been, and especially with a wheeling and dealing administration, like we saw what happened when they got rid of the March program, right? And they loosened restrictions for nightclubs and bars and restaurants. What happened? There was an extortion ring that popped up right behind it to take its place, right? Corruption took its place. Now we're loosening restrictions when it comes around building. And what do mostly everyone in the Adams administration get indicted for? They're getting indicted for taking bribes to either flout the rules or to sell contracts. So when I saw the city of Yes, I saw a grift. I saw builders being able to backdoor pay our elected officials and be able to get buildings up cheaply, quickly, and flout all of the safety rules that have been put in place for a reason. Now this building has this big problem, and I sit there and I say, okay, yeah, 100%. There was a failure somewhere. Where's the failure? We haven't been told where that failure is. Was the failure with the materials? Was that failure in the plan itself? Was that failure in executing the plan? Where did the failure cause these beams to collapse? Where was that? How did that happen? And ultimately, I say, yeah, of course it's incompetence coupled with corruption. But is it intentional incompetence or is it just sheer incompetence? That we don't know. Either way, it's criminal. Either way, you should be furious at New York City government. Yes, and I agree with you, Marlon. Zohran Mamdani is going to hold the weight of this on his shoulders, but this isn't just Zohran Mamdani's fault. Or every member of city council that voted for the city, yes, former New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Bill de Blasio, who paved the way for it. Every supporter of the city of Yes should have this on their shoulders. And Mamdani was one of them. So him as well.
Well, yeah, they all contribute to it, and it's not just these recent mayors too, by the way. Okay, the issue is that New York City is run by real estate. Okay, and it has been so for decades. Okay, it has been so since in fact in the 1970s. It's these developers that what you don't know is they along with Wall Street, but the leaders were developers. They took charge, and we kind of live in the shadow of a lot of the changes that happened then. and these guys have had a massive influence over the city because nearly 50% of the city's tax revenue comes from commercial real estate, property taxes. Yeah. So when you contribute that much to New York City, and we're talking billionaires, you have a outsized influence on New York City government and politicians in general. And these guys also have a cozy relationship with Wall Street and the hedge funds on Wall Street. Now, we've been talking about the what's going on with the streets, the carving up of streets, the adding of bike lanes, and the super speeders law now for a while. And that law is the champion behind it is a guy named Mark Gordon, who is a hedge fund guy. But again, you can see he's intertwined with the real estate because his hedge fund is invested in certain initiatives that are themselves adjacent to real estate. Okay. So there's a cozy relationship between these these developers and real estate moguls and Wall Street. A lot of it also has to do with the fact that you know these buildings, a lot of these buildings are financed with debt, and a lot of that debt itself gets repackaged onto Wall Street and sold by Wall Street. And by the way, a lot of that debt gets sold to pension funds as well. So um, that's why I say that if that building falls, a lot of people get affected by it. Okay, and the market gets affected by it too, and that also includes your pension, by the way. And I'm talking about losses that would incur in all of them because of this. And I think there are real massive consequences to this that haven't been haven't been thought out yet. Regardless of whether it actually whether the building actually falls or not. And again, I'll get into that as we go further on.
So we're being told it's stable now. Like I
Mhm.
said, there's crews in there putting emergency trusses in there to shore up that building. I don't know that that's an actual proper solution. And
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not.
I mean, and you know, like here's the thing: do you go forward with this now, or do you begin to unassemble it? And I'm going to say any competent government would say, yeah, no, we absolutely cannot go forward with this project at this point. So whether it gets taken down safely or it comes down, I mean, this has the potential to be one of the largest construction failures in the country, uh, probably in New York City history. I hope everything works out and I hope it's fine, but I just have zero faith. And the reason I have zero faith is because I listen to these press conferences and I have a historical background on these people that consistently lie to our faces every day and tell us everything's okay. I mean, look, we got taken down. Why do we really get taken down, right? Because, sure we have complaints by some loser who sits there all day and makes complaints about us because he does advertising for a law firm. Yeah, that's not why we got taken down. We got taken down because we got some high level complaints because there was a cover up about I don't want to even call it a friendly fire situation, but that's what we call it. Let's call it what it is. There was a blatant, nobody wanted you to know that detective was shot in the back by another police officer. Right. And we watched the press conference. We watched how they carefully worded it so that you wouldn't know it. And then it had to come out after myself and Marlon did the show on Monday. Right. We got penalized because we were bad boys because we told the truth. But that's why that came down. Right. And when I watch this press conference again, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, there's a lot of truth that's not being spoken here, and there's a lot of people that shouldn't even be at that press conference, probably namely the fire commission. And let's get something straight for those of you that don't know firemen. Like firemen in New York City, you have to have a real good knowledge of buildings. Like the fire chiefs in New York City, they basically know every building in the city. They know based upon the year it was made, what type of materials was made, what type of materials it's made out of, and how that city and how that building could possibly collapse, all the numerous ways it could, and any type of fire, what they need to do for fire suppression, how fire suppression works in the building. So there's a lot of history there. When you're the fire commissioner and you don't have that experience in firefighting, you're really basically a waste at that scene right there. That's why Chief Esposito for the fire department was doing all the speaking here, is because he understands building code. He understands how, like, basically any major issues concerning a structural issue with a building. So firemen, and especially when you get up to the executive level of firemen, they understand this better than probably anybody. And we have a commissioner seated in there who probably has less experience in this than I do. So, I just have to say that, and it shows at the press conference. And I think when I hear the reassurance of everything, it's good to, of course, it's good to be positive, of course that, but I would hate to see people get their lives put at risk unnecessarily to try to cover up the malfeasance, the corruption, and the incompetence of not only New York City officials, but their friends who were building this building and the Department of Buildings' clear and competent neglect to properly ensure that an undertaking of this kind was being performed correctly. Because let's not beat around the bush. This is a catastrophic failure on the Department of Buildings. It's catastrophic. So let's bring you the press conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. Around 8 a.m. this morning, FDNY received reports of a structural issue at an active construction site on East 42nd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. This is an existing 37-story building with active permits to convert it from a commercial office building to a residential building. First responders from FDNY, NYCM, and the Department of Buildings responded to the call immediately and found structural issues on the 21st floor. 2 structural columns have buckled, in addition to multiple cracks and sagging floors. The building remains unstable. Since arriving on scene, we have witnessed additional movement in one of the compromised columns. First responders and structural engineers are working closely with the project engineer to develop plans to shore up the impacted floor. If the floor is deemed to be secure, engineers will enter and begin shoring up the building. As we await the arrivals of materials that will stabilize the building, DOB engineers have been investigating with FDNY drones. This is an extremely serious situation, and I am thankful to our first responders for quickly arriving at the site and to New Yorkers for reacting calmly and with urgency. I am grateful to report that there have been no injuries at this time and that every worker has been accounted for. The NYPD has instituted a frozen zone from 40th to 45th Streets between 1st and 3rd Avenues. These streets have been temporarily closed off to both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. The NYPD is also deploying additional officers to ensure that the area remains secure. I want to encourage New Yorkers to avoid the area until it has been deemed safe to re-enter. As we work to secure this building and ensure that New Yorkers are safe, I want to encourage New Yorkers to also continue to follow the instructions of those who are on the ground. Now, I want to thank the many government agencies who have worked closely with one another this morning to protect the people of the city. FDNY coordinated with NYCM. NYPD officers are keeping traffic moving and helping to keep New Yorkers out of the frozen zones. DOB inspectors and engineers are managing an incredibly complex situation. On behalf of New York City, thank you. Now I will pass it over to our fire commissioner, Lillian Bonsignore.
So he's clearly under a lot of pressure right there, right? He's clearly feeling the pain. So now, like we said, there are emergency crews in there currently putting in emergency trusses. However, the frozen zone is huge, and the frozen zone hasn't been lifted. There's been 9 buildings surrounding that area that have been evacuated, and they have zero idea on a time frame of their return. The other thing is we have money for illegals. We have money for everybody else, but Red Cross, no one is helping any of these people that have been displaced as a result of it. So businesses are going to lose money. There are people that are out of their homes right now. There are tourists that have been evacuated from the hotel. You see the hotel in the background right there. I think it's a Sheraton, if I'm not mistaken. And they have nowhere to go right now. They have nowhere to go. They can't get back to their area, and there's zero help coming from New York City government. They have how long they will be displaced for. So, what are your thoughts about Mondani?
Well, yeah, he's now gonna have to be a big boy and actually be a mayor now, and it's no more nice ads, you know, no more hugging, you know, being the jovial mayor, you know, jovial, friendly mayor. He's actually going to have to get to work now on some serious issues. And make no mistake, this is very serious. Okay. Let me, yeah, when you continue playing the video, John, I'll dig into the area. This is very serious, guys, because, so this is the area, right? This is 235. The actual address is 235 East 42nd Street. So as you can see right here, it is pretty much nearly in the heart of Manhattan. But like John said, there are a lot of important buildings that are in that area. Okay, as you can see, the UN is right next to it. And as Mamdani himself said in that press conference, the streets are closed from 1st to 3rd Avenue, from 40th Street to all the way to 46th Street up here. So the Grand Central is not too far from here as well. And keep in mind, the train line also runs beneath that building too. So, you know, God forbid the building actually does come down. I can foresee that line having to, you know, getting disrupted as well. But as it stands right now, there's enough here that keeping those streets closed is going to certainly disrupt the traffic flow coming from the Midtown Tunnel and heading towards the Ed Koch Bridge from 1st Avenue all the way to 3rd Avenue. So this is a big deal. And if those streets stay closed, I've heard estimates of the city losing $1 million a day on it in terms of revenue. And think of how much property values are going to decline here if this area remains closed. Because if that building does come down, now they're going to have to clear debris, and whatever they're going to build up there, you know, is going to take some time. So you can imagine it's going to be like a prolonged period of you know, limited movement, if any movement at all, in that area. So we're talking this is a very, very big deal if again, if that building has to be torn down, or if the upper floors actually come down on their own. And I think we're at this point where it may not even matter whether it has to come down on its own, because it may have to be taken down. Because I mean, those upper floors, it was supposed to be 11 additional floors onto the existing 22. So those 11 floors were supposed to be partly luxury. There was supposed to be luxury with a mixture of affordable housing there, and that's affordable housing because, you know, it's not the affordable housing we think of when we think of low income. And the question is, how many wealthy people would feel comfortable buying an apartment up there now, considering what's happened?
Well, I wouldn't even feel comfortable walking by that at this point. And I'm not talking about as in its current state where, I mean, they've evacuated a huge area. I'm talking about even if they say, oh yeah, it's all good to go. No, we're good. We fixed it. I don't know how you fix this in the air like this. I honestly don't. I personally think the whole entire building has to come down. You know, the structure of the main building that you were building on has just been compromised. I don't know how you're shoring anything up. You know, maybe emergency wise, you could shore it up to take it down, but I don't think you could go forward with this construction project. My opinion, you know, and look, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just telling you right now, I'm a consumer. I'm a person who travels to and from, back and forth, and within New York. I want nothing to do with that building. I tell my children, don't ever walk in there, don't ever walk by it. Watch out for that building. I have concerns already about a lot of buildings in New York City. You know, facades crumbling, they're too old, they're not doing anything. I mean, you walk around, you see scaffolding up for years, construction projects not being done. And now I just want you to think of this, you know, it's the largest undertaking of its kind in New York City history, and some are saying it's the largest undertaking of its kind in the country. How wasn't Department of Buildings all over this project? How could this happen? How could it happen? We're making history here, and if we're not looking at the largest construction project daily, hourly, minute by minute, what are we doing on all the other ones?
Yeah.
What are we doing on all the routine ones? All the ones that we do in the past? I'll tell you what we're doing. We're doing nothing. That's what we're doing. Really, really scary. You know, and I think, you know, when I watch that press conference, I see the stress in him, and I see that he's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. So here we go. Let's go further with the press conference. Here's another person totally in overhead. And again, they put a quote of me in the paper not too long ago saying, well, Jessica Tisch had no police experience. I wasn't saying it because I think that should be the norm. I was just saying it like, hey, if you're going to criticize one, criticize the other.
Good afternoon. At 7:57 this morning, the FDNY received a 911 call for 235 East 42nd Street. The report was for bricks falling from the upper floors. Our units arrived very quickly and did an assessment. At this moment, we have 150 fire and EMS personnel on scene, over 50 units. Upon arrival, there was an assessment done and the building was determined to be unstable. So we started evacuations of the building and the surrounding areas, establishing a collapse zone. I'm going to turn this over to Chief of Department John Esposito to talk a little bit more about the actual operations here.
So I guess that didn't work out so well, right? Having her as the fire commissioner. She literally just said nothing. She's like, oh yeah, we responded here and they got there. Let me turn it over to the person who probably should be the fire commissioner. John, could you tell us? Because I don't really know anything about any of this stuff.
Well, that's not much different from Tish, you know, except
Exactly.
Tish has more info and she can read all that info, you know, read the script that's handed to her. Yeah. But I will give her credit. You know, I saw the the city council hearing with her, and I like the way she defended her department, her agency. So I will give her credit there. But yeah, this is why you need to have people in positions that that are prepared for it. You know, I criticize Bratton all the time, you know, because again, you know, Bratton, to me, Bratton was like a rock star in law enforcement, you know. So I'm very disappointed that he now granted, I'm well aware of the problems with Bratton too. Okay. But let me tell you, you know, coming on in the early 2000s, in the mid 2000s, I thought Bratton was like a rock star of law enforcement. But I'm very disappointed in his silence at what's happening within the department now. Okay. So I criticize him all the time. But there's no dispute that if you get into a room with Bratton, you get into a room with Bratton and you can put in you can put Tish in that room too. And I guarantee you Bratton you're gonna think that Bratton is still the PC, because he's a very, very he knows his stuff, you know. I went to a Hudson Yards meeting when I was still in Intel, and he was there. And you know, I was there with John Miller and a couple other bosses from Intel. And then Bratton spoke, and I was like, damn, this guy hasn't been in the department for like a couple of years now, and he still like was on top of stuff, and he like commanded the room, you know. So he knows his stuff. So my point here is that when you put people in a position like that in a city as massive as we are, a city that's larger than states in this country, that's larger than countries, right? That person should know their shit from top to bottom, and they should command the room. And you know, they can't be. I don't think they should be a figurehead. Okay, I think they should really be that person who, they may not know everything, but they should command the room and give you the confidence that if there's an emergency, that they are the one in charge, right?
So you don't think we should appoint a fire commissioner just based upon a sexual preference? Is that what you got? Yeah, no, me neither. Yeah, I just wanted to push back just a little bit. I thought she was horrendous at that at that city council hearing. I don't know what the hell you were watching. I thought she was absolutely horrendous. I thought they all looked like they should have been fired that day. Like, they're like, oh yeah, how much do you guys make? All right, let's save $2 million right now and get rid of all of you. We'll keep the chief. The rest of you, you're out of here. Because I didn't know, like, it was an embarrassment, dude, honestly. So, and that's another embarrassment right there. I think, you know, she doesn't know anything. She basically, that was a waste. And I'm sorry, like, I've never seen, and I've never seen Tish with a police hat on. Never seen Tish with a police hat on. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
I get it. It's in case something falls. I get it.
Well, so everyone there should have been wearing a helmet, then, including.
Well, yeah, they should be. They actually should be. I would.
Everyone there should be wearing a helmet.
Sure. Yeah.
You know. So, but with that said, I've never seen Tish with an NYPD hat on. So that's another thing.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when we arrived on the scene to the reports of buildings, bricks falling from the building, we conducted the assessment. We put our firefighters into the building to conduct the search. We were in touch with the construction crews. All workers were accounted for. There were no injuries. It's a very serious situation. The box beams, the steel beams, had started to bend and deflect from the weight. We evacuated the building and started evacuations of surrounding buildings, and the building has continued to move since we've been on the scene. We have a frozen zone and a collapse zone set up, and we are working with the buildings department and the building engineer to make sure that this is safe for our people and for all New Yorkers. I'm going to turn it over now to the Department of Buildings Commissioner.
Hello, everyone. Much of the initial information, the setting, has been already shared by the mayor and my colleagues. We have seen both buckling and floor conditions that are impaired.
So before we go to the Department of Buildings Commissioner, sorry, I wanted to turn down the dimmers in here a little bit. Central book and the I had to get the cell attendant to bring it down. What did you think about what the chief said?
Yeah, well, I think there's no doubt that he knows his stuff, you know. And again, but the problem with the chief is that he's a older white guy, okay, and that doesn't jive with the progressivism. You know, you need you need somebody that's part of the Democrat hierarchy of victimhood to be at the forefront of your administration and your agency.
Yeah, but look, I think the guy knows what he's talking about. I think he's a competent guy, but I just want to preface that with the fact that I like NYPD executives, FDNY executives are no different, where they will go along with the political messaging. They're mandated to do it, and they will put their workers and other workers' safety at risk to align with whatever the mayor or that fire commissioner wants to do. So I'm just prefacing it with that. I didn't hear anything at that point, but I'm just saying that. Here's the Department of Buildings Commissioner. Another guy. It's a political patronage job.
On the 21st floor. We both have construction safety inspectors and construction safety engineers on site evaluating from the street and vantage points set up across the street and to the west, so we can monitor movement of the building and the floors to understand what's happening on a continuous basis. Once we can determine that it's safe to enter the building, we will then, in concert with the contractors, ownership, and with consultation with FDNY, be able to deploy a plan to shore up that floor and then continue to investigate further for any other weak points that need further help and shoring. After that point, we will be able to investigate further if there's anything else that we need to do scoping out from that area. The work of FDNY, I want to thank OEM FDNY for the work they're doing to create the perimeter and the safety zone. We encourage everyone to please heed our ask not to come to the area. And right now, the safety of the public is our top priority. Once we have more, we'll make sure to share that information with the public.
Okay, we have time for just a few questions. And
Before we go to the questions, here's another guy. Like, he should ensure everyone there has a helmet on. He should be talking about any issues that they had at that building, what they were working on at that building, had they had any complaints on it. And again, New York City is not forthcoming with the public. The bottom line is, where were all of his guys prior to any of this? What were there issues with this? What type of work had the Department of Buildings done on that construction site prior? Again, largest construction of its type in New York City history. What did you guys do? How did this happen? And, he's just, again, regurgitating everything that Mondani said, the fire commissioner said, and he just repeated it.
Keep in mind now, he has no experience in construction also, right? His name is Ahmed Tagani, and he's also a former Eric Adams administration official, by the way. He served under Melanie LaRocca, who was the first DOB commissioner under Adams, but she transitioned to the Office of Efficiency, I think it's called. Let me look it up. So Chief Efficiency Officer. I don't even know what she did under that role, because we certainly didn't see any efficiency in the Adams administration. But anyway, I guess maybe efficient in expediting those payments from Turkish developers to Eric Adams. Yeah,
yep.
We'll get to that. But he worked underneath her, and his experience. He's been in the DOB for a while, and before that he was in housing preservation and development, and managing the city's housing, land use, and building policy sectors, but no actual experience in building or construction. So again, he has a pretty good advantage though, and that is he's South Asian, and again, he fits in there with the Democrat hierarchy of racial hierarchy of victimhood. Okay, so he gets a good position there, regardless of whether he actually had experience in construction or not.
Or what about former conservative Staten Island Borough President Jimmy Otto, or former conservative Eric Ulrich? Like, what was that? That was throwing a bone. My next pick under Adams, if Adams would have won for DOB commissioner, would have been Joe Borelli, another guy with zero experience.
He would have gotten in there.
I was like, that's that was like I was like, that's next up 100%. So now here's the most dangerous thing in New York City, right? Questions. Now, will the right questions get asked? Because they weren't asked at that press conference. I'll tell you that when it was the police involved shooting where a detective was shot in the back. So questions, right? Now, Mondani's confidence shrinks again. Let's hear what questions are being asked, and go through them.
time for just a few questions, and please speak up. We're going to start with Andrew Sim from NBC.
Yes.
Please speak up.
Chief Esposito talked about seeing that the building has continued to move. Can you clarify for us, does that mean that those top floors remain at risk of actual collapse? What do you mean by at risk
So he's asking him right now. They said the building continues to move. Does that mean, he asked, does that mean that the top floors are at risk of collapse or the entire building? Here's what Chief Esposito.
So we have specialized tools that we can watch the building from and see movement even in centimeters or fractions of an inch. And since we arrived on the scene and put that in place, we have seen continual movement. It does mean that it is not yet stable. It is still a very serious and dangerous situation.
And just, Mayor, to follow up on that, having heard the assessment from the chief, what worries you the most about this situation?
I think this is a minute-by-minute assessment, and I'm thankful for the work of all of our city workers in doing exactly that from the morning through this moment and then through the rest of the day. And as you heard from our DOB commissioner, the number one focus here is the safety of New Yorkers. We're thankful that at this time there are no injuries. Every worker is accounted for. And now we are continuing to assess. As soon as this building is stable, it then opens up the possibilities for us to shore up the building. But until that point, we are still having to measure that. I know our DOB commissioner wanted to add a few details.
As an example of how information changes over time, the initial report that came in was about bricks falling off the building. When arriving, we did not see evidence of that, so we're not seeing things come off. The compromise point, as you mentioned, is something that we're monitoring and looking at. The chief, especially FDNY's drone unit, has been integral to watching and seeing how that movement happens. And so right now you have both DOB staff, you have the contractors with beams that are tracking that. And what we are focused on and what we feel like the next step is making sure we can get into that 21st floor to add additional emergency trusses to spread that load and be able to move on with the investigation.
Thank you. We're going to go to Gloria Pasbino from CNN. Mayor and the commissioners, can you speak about the addition of floors as part of this project and whether that addition had anything to do with the buckling of the beams that was reported? Can we get some clarity on how many floors there actually are? Because I think there's some confusion because of that.
I mean, if Gloria, if that's not the dumbest question I ever heard, do we think that the addition of the floors caused the structure to get pressure on it to where the beams collapse? I mean, like, come on. Like, what are these questions? How many violations have they had? How many violations have they had? What's going on? What are we looking at? What are we looking at if this collapses? What are we looking at if there's a partial collapse? Is this something that we think going forward we're going to be able to continue this construction project? When are these people that are displaced going to be able to come back in here? When is this scene going to be made safe? I haven't heard one question like that.
So I will just add a few words before passing it over to my deputy mayor for housing to share on that. When it comes to what this building is, as you said, this is a commercial office building that is being renovated into a residential building. And as part of the renovations is what we have seen here today. I'll pass it over. Yeah, well, DOB Commissioner.
So if I understood the question, this is a building that was going through a office residential conversion. It went through plan review and has gone through an exhaustive review with DOB over the last 2 years. What is happening now is an investigation of what is the cause of why the undermining happened. And so once we have that information, we'll be able to share it. But as the mayor said, it's a conversion of an office building into a residential property, and with that comes certain code changes and structural requirements, all of which have gone through a plan review. And now we're examining what happened now, and we'll check it against the reviews, the plans were approved. Oh, sorry, that was the question. So the existing, it's 37 floors with an addition of 11 floors above a 22 floor element. So 22 floors on one piece, 37 on the taller part of the building, and they were adding 11 floors above the 22 floors.
And how many floors exist now?
So right now there are 37 floors, and they have topped out on the extension as well. So the extension's been built out, and they have topped out on that part as well.
All right, thank you. We're going to take two more. We're going to go to Aaron from ABC News. Go.
So right now, I'm just saying, right now, do you have any faith in anybody on the scene or anything that you're being told? Like, I know that they probably have professionals coming in at this point. I would hope so. But everyone up here at this point, I have zero faith in anything that they're saying. They know less about what's occurring than most people watching the news. I'm like, complete incompetence, completely the absolute wrong people. And just another thing, this girl on the left of Mondani or on the right of your screen with her disheveled unironed shirt, with her undid hair, with her jacket open, I believe she's part of OEM. I have no idea, but like, what is she doing? I mean, she didn't shower today. Like, you couldn't make yourself presentable for the press conference at least. If you guys don't know anything, you can at least look presentable.
Well, I'm gonna push back against that. I understand the situation. This thing happened suddenly, and these are people. How often does what did you say she was from OEM?
That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, how often does OEM have to get in front of that camera to be, you know?
Well, I could care less. I could care less how you keep yourself. I could imagine how her office is kept. I could imagine what everything else. I could care less. It's unacceptable. If that was
Yeah.
a cop right now, she would get her ass ripped, or a fireman.
Well, I'll give exemptions depending on the circumstances, and seems like a kind of sudden emergency, So I'll give you a break from now. The question is, if she were to talk, would she sound competent or not?
Nah, and I want to hear the chief of operations too, standing in the background. Special operations, FDNY. I want to hear him too. I want to hear them speak. I want to hear Flynn speak. First deputy commissioner. I want to hear what they got to say.
Yeah. You gotta love our chat, Thank you, Anthony. Marlon don't like iron shirts.
Totally different when you're doing a podcast or when
Yeah.
you're in charge of $1 trillion in New York City and millions of lives. Totally different.
Yeah.
It appears just by looking at it, the building is leaning. Is the building leaning, and is the concern an internal collapse or an external collapse on the street?
So he said, it appears the building's leaning. Are we worried about an internal collapse, or are we just worried about the top collapse?
Concern is that since we have been on site in the early morning, we have seen continued shift of the structure, and I'm going to pass it over to our chief of department to add a little more detail there.
The way this building is constructed, it's a steel frame building, so it would not be a total collapse. It would be more of a localized collapse.
So look, I'm going to just say right then and there, I know this guy knows a lot more than me. I'm not trying to say that I have any more experience than he does in this, but I think that is a blatant, outright lie, in my opinion. We're not worried about a total collapse. We're only worried about a localized collapse. And maybe he's talking about that localized where it'll stay in itself, but why do you have blocks and blocks evacuated if you weren't worried about that?
Yeah.
They're worried about an all-out collapse, and if they're not, then I don't know what the hell we're doing here, because basically you're building like the building that they're doing, it's called a wedding cake, right? That's what they're building. They're building a wedding cake. You have the a wide frame going down, a wide structure going down. You're going to put another layer on top of it, smaller, and that bottom structure is going to hold that weight. We already had a collapse on the bottom structure, right? So it's not sustaining the weight that's up there. So when they begin to shore up, right, and they begin to put those emergency trusses up to stop that collapse from happening, they're putting more stress on the lower half of that building, and that building's not designed for that. So the potential for that to happen, for it to be an all-out collapse, is 100% there. The potential for that building to completely collapse is absolutely there. Right now, they're doing what they could do to try to get it stable, and they're saying that it's stable and they have people in there. But if it was stable, the streets would be open, people would be allowed back in their buildings, and they're not, because it's not stable and they are worried about an all-out collapse. So just like we weren't told about a police officer being shot in the back, a detective being shot in the back, they're not being forthcoming at this press conference either.
Well, they're not. They're not, because here's the problem, right? They want to tear down that building? Hell no, they don't. Will they have a choice in this? Nope. They won't have a choice in the matter, because there's only so much you can do to that building now that it's precariously leaning like it is right now. Okay, and as the chief mentioned here, there are bricks falling. So, I mean, what are we gonna do here? We're gonna prop back up the building, and even if you got to do that, you're gonna have to shut down the area for a while to be able to, make repairs on it. If you could actually save it, I don't think you can save it, because again, which wealthy person is gonna buy $1 million condo out of a building that, months ago was like, had clearly had oversight issues, safety issues, and construction issues. Okay, who's gonna invest $1 million in it? Okay, but before we continue, let's give you guys some background on this. Okay, again, none of this is new. We talked about this before. Yeah, I guess it kind of cut off this image, but what you're seeing here is the pamphlet for City of Yes plan. This was one of Eric Adams, his. In fact, I would say was his primary policy initiative. Okay, the City of Yes. This man was obsessed with the City of Yes. Okay, and let's let me pull this up. What exactly was the City of Yes? Well, the City of Yes was a few. There's a couple parts of it, but the point is, it was a sweeping historic initiative to modernize the city's old zoning laws. Now I'm giving you the surface level part of it, right? It said it represents the most significant overhaul of NYC zoning since 1961. The core philosophy behind the plan is to update archaic rules so the city can say yes to sustainable development, economic growth, and most notably housing. Okay, sustainable growth. Whenever you hear sustainable growth, by the way, that's another globalist UN term. Okay, globalist, amorphous term. Okay, it doesn't mean what they're telling you it means. Okay, but let's tell you what those are the surface level description of what City of Yes is from Adams administration themselves. What the City of Yes really is that they are desperate because things are shifting in the global world. I've said before, Trump is bringing back jobs to America, and production has to come back to America and the region of the Americas, meaning parts of South America and Central America, right? This is why the U.S. government is exerting more control over those areas. Like, we now basically own Venezuela. Soon we're going to own Cuba too. And we're exerting our influence over it because we're saying this is our sphere of influence. We own this area, because we're also going to be using those areas for cheap production, right? Along with bringing back certain aspects of production back to America, like chips production, right? That is happening because China is no longer playing ball with us. They're saying, we're not going to be a cheap labor source. We're going to make stuff, and our companies are going to compete with yours on a global scale, right? So what does that mean? That means that America and cities will the dynamics of the economy are changing. And right now, cities depend upon property taxes, and especially commercial property taxes, to stay afloat. That has created a Ponzi, if you will, where rich people use housing itself as an asset rather than just a vehicle to shelter, as shelter, right? And Wall Street, in turn, then packages the debt associated with real estate into securities that are then traded and sold on Wall Street. And what we've created since the 1970s and since we got off the gold standard is a Ponzi, is a bubble based off housing. Okay, And that's largely because we outsourced all the labor to overseas. So what happens when the labor gets moved back into America? Well, housing is going to shift to areas where the labor is being produced, where the factories are being built. And that changes the entire dynamics of who's going to be living in which parts of the country. Okay. Because people shifted in the 1970s. And when we started outsourcing, people started moving into cities even more so for jobs. Those jobs are white collar jobs, like office jobs. Problem now is that building, the Pfizer building, used to be an office building, right? It's now largely empty. And the revenue that's coming out of the office space is no longer the same. So what happens if you're the owner of that building? Well, you're going to have to find a new revenue source. So what are they doing? Well, that revenue source is they want to shift it to being luxury, okay, where you can sell those additional floors for millions of dollars, okay? And if they don't, as it stands now, they have a negative, a negative asset on their books, okay? That's not no longer generating revenue like it once did. Therefore, it's no longer going to be valued like it once did if you have to refinance it with banks. That's the impetus for the city of Yes. It's to convert a lot of these empty office spaces into housing. They're telling you it's for affordable housing when really it's a couple affordable apartments in there if you manage to qualify for it, and the vast majority of it is luxury real estate. What the city of Yes is to help shift the city's revenue stream from commercial office, well, to shift parts of the revenue stream in the commercial real estate space to a different revenue stream as the old one deteriorates and the city shifts. But they're not going to tell you that, because then if you think about it, you realize how deep of a problem it is right now and how deep of a problem it is for the city's budget, which is why this year Mamdani needed a bailout, partial bailout from the state. Next year he's going to need it. And the year after that, he's going to need it. And it's going to keep happening until the city finds a new revenue stream to make up for the loss of revenue in these sectors. So I'll continue with this as we go on further.
So Marlon just took us completely into the weeds about the city of Yes. So now I'm going to bring you all the way back out, and I'm going to say, did the city of Yes contribute to this collapse? Absolutely, it did.
Absolutely.
It loosened up the restrictions. It 100%. We wouldn't even be discussing this if it wasn't for the city of Yes. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for the city of Yes. So that's one. The other thing that we talk about a lot on here again is nepotism, cronyism, fear incompetence, DEI, placing people in positions they shouldn't be in, right? The other issue is this. We love to tout how great we are, how good we are. Oh, we're the best. We're making history here. Here's another historical project, right? Here's another historical project. You would think all of the eyes of the world in New York City would be right there on that project. Like, all right, this has to go good. This has to go good. City of Yes is on the line. My whole political career is on the line because I supported this. Remember, there was only one candidate that didn't support the City of Yes. That was it. Everybody else did. Everybody else did. Cuomo was all for it. Mondani was balls deep in it. Everybody loved the City of Yes, right? Everybody loved it. So you have the City of Yes loosening up these restrictions. Will those loosened up restrictions have caused the biggest construction blunder in New York City history? And I think it already has. Regardless of what you're told here, I think I'm watching the press conference, and I don't think they're being honest with you. Let's just finish up the press conference before we go further on that. Why isn't it coming up to the stage? All right, here we go.
But that remains our concern, that it's moving. Possibly.
Right. Thank you, Aaron. Now, one more question. We're going to go to Jill from New York One. Please speak up.
Mayor, thank you. You are some of the folks trying to tell us a little bit about how do you shore up this building right now? How do you get this into this? Is it
So I'll first just start with the importance of safety at this time. We have evacuated not only the building, but also 7 buildings around it. I really do appreciate the way in which New Yorkers have responded to this situation. We've seen that they have followed the instructions that have been provided by first responders on the ground, and that has been immensely helpful to ensuring that those first responders can be focused on the work at hand. I'm now going to pass it over to our DOB commissioner to add to additional details.
So because the structural issue has to do with load-bearing columns, what we bring in are emergency struts that will take on the load of that and be applied throughout the floor to take on that load. Plus, we may apply additional struts, given that there could be weakening or cracks somewhere else. So it's really emergency beams, emergency columns that are brought in, and then they go and replace the load. Plus, we may add additional for extra security and safety.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, as we discussed before, there is extensive work happening right now between the engineers, DOB staff, FDNY, to evaluate the situation on the level using the information that we're reading from the outside. Once we have a secure plan, we'll be able to bring the equipment that we have now on site after asking the contractor to bring that forward so that we're ready to go once we have a plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we have time for just
To me, it sounds like they want to move forward with the whole thing. Right? He says, we're going to bring in the emergency trusses, we're going to bring in the emergency struts, and we're going to shore up, and we're going to add some additional ones, and then we're going to wait for the contractor to see what we're going to do to go forward. I mean, I don't know, dude. I have no faith in this administration. I blame this all on it. I know what you're saying, Marlon. I get you saying they're doing this because of the budget and because of what's happening in New York City and because of what they've devoted our pension money to. I 100% get it. But the bottom line is, at the granular level, they can't execute because they're highly incompetent, they're highly unqualified and inexperienced, and they truly don't care. Because even if you were unqualified and inexperienced, you will learn the damn job and do it correctly. They don't care.
Well, I think I think they are incompetent. That's a fact. Okay. But I think it's even more than that. I think it's desperation again. And no, you are absolutely correct. They do not want to tear down this building. And because if they tear down this building, a lot of things come down to. And I'm not just talking about the revenue that the city would lose, you know. I'm talking about the if you tear down that building, right? The bankers, the developers lose $1 billion immediately. That $1 billion goes up in smoke. Okay. And then they're gonna lose millions in the ongoing, the time frame that they would have supposed to have gotten revenue from selling the apartments. They're gonna lose, right? And it's gonna cost again billions to build back up the structure there. Okay. So they're going to lose a lot of money. Okay. And we're talking about powerful developers. The developer behind that, by the way, is very powerful, in terms of the, his stature in the city. Right. So they don't want to tear this down. And again, I spoke about how much money that area was going to lose. That area is going to lose $1 million a day if they have to tear down that structure. But they won't have a choice in this again, because I suspect the community council is going to have issues if that building stays up there, if they try and shore it up, right? And think they're going to just build it back up like normal, like continue building it like as was happening before this. I suspect the community council is also going to want heavy oversight over the construction because there was none before. So,
but which they voted for. They voted to relieve it. They voted to not have the heavy oversight over the construction.
Well,
and now they want it because they're completely incompetent and they have no idea what they're doing, and they're putting profit ahead of everyone. That guy's talking about, I'll play the video from the union rep where he says, oh, they didn't hire a union and they put profit over safety. Yeah, I'll get it. When you talk about the developers, this is profit over safety from New York City government more than it has anything to do with the developers. The developers are just playing with the system that they're given, and the system that they're given is set forth, and the rules are put in place by our elected officials. Again, it's political malfeasance, corruption, and incompetence that have caused this. $1 million a day is a way undervaluing. You're way undervaluing right now. That area is shut down. There's businesses across the street from there, all the way up. There's hotels, there's commercial buildings, there's residential buildings. There's people that can't get in their home. There's people that can't get in their offices, meaning they can't make money. They can't get to their equipment. $1 million, they're probably losing that an hour.
Yeah.
They're probably losing that an hour right in that area right there. I mean, like, and there's no plan to help anybody. Again, we have rooms for illegals. But if you're a tax-paying American in this country and you have an apartment in New York City right over there and you were just evacuated, yeah, figure it out. Figure it out. We don't know when you're coming back in. Don't worry. We're going to keep this construction project going, though. You know, I don't know, bro. I'm like, this is like, we're literally at the height of catastrophic failure in New York City at this point. I get all the plans you're going on, and I understand you going through it and talking it, but like, they can't execute anything because they're so incompetent that there's nothing that they could actually see through that would work. No one could believe that any plan they have could absolutely work. Can't follow through on any of it. You loosened up restrictions. You loosened up restrictions and didn't keep a sharp eye on it. On the largest construction project of its kind, and now it's going to be the largest construction blunder of its kind. And if they go forward in years to come, it'll probably still be the largest construction failure of its kind, because I don't trust it.
Well, I'm simply saying their incompetence got them into this problem, but whether they're competent now, I think they're in a between. I think they're in a they're in such a position where there's really not much they can do. Okay, the ball started rolling downhill a while ago, and now it's a massive boulder that's coming towards your house, and there's nothing that anybody can do right now to stop that boulder from happening. So what am I talking about? Okay, the reason why I brought up all of that about the city of Yes is because it's important to understand the desperation that the people in government have right now. They're not telling you though how bad it is, because they don't want they don't want you plebs to panic, okay? And they don't want you to grab your pitchforks and your torches and head in the street, and start going after politicians, okay? So let's get back to, I want to show you something here. This is Executive Order number 5, signed by Mayor Mamdani, his first day, right? What did the Executive Order 5 establish? Well, it established the Speed Task Force, okay? Let me pull up what the actual acronym means. Let me see. So the Speed Task Force, gotta find the acronym. Anyway, basically, the Speed Task Force is supposed to support massive projects like the Pfizer conversion. The city utilized its office conversion accelerator, which was designed to speed up the timelines and bypass traditional bureaucratic gridlock. Okay. Let's go to what this is actually saying here. So the Speed Task Force was co-chaired by the Deputy Mayor of Housing and Planning, Deputy Mayor of Operations, and basically it's supposed to speed up the timeline of building and of converting these office spaces into residential condos. And what does speed up mean is the question I'm asking you guys in the chat and you guys watching us. What does speeding up exactly mean? It means taking shortcuts. Okay. It means lack of oversight. Okay, in its practice, that's what it actually translates to. It means they cut corners, and they didn't put enough oversight into this because they want this done quickly. And why do they want it done quickly? Well, because yeah, I see you there, Mike. Share. You're exactly all right. They want this done quickly because they're desperate for the revenue. Okay, because they are losing revenue sources. Okay, and the city's that budget gap is going to increase the longer they stay without a new measures to fill in that shortage of revenue. So basically, what I'm saying here, John, is that a lot of the problems you're seeing here are the direct result of Mamdani's own executive order, and the Speed Task Force is not much different from the one that Eric Adams also had one called, I think it's called Blast, which was basically to speed up this development and to cut corners. Okay, so if that building comes down, who would take blame for it? Who would have to take blame? Well, it's the consequences of this executive order that Mamdani put into place. So you can see why they don't want it to come down. This is telling you that this task force is a failure and this initiative is a failure.
Look, I'm totally in agreement that Mamdani's a completely in over his head, and there's a lot of things that happened, but these permits were all signed off on way before he was the mayor. This construction project's been under, it's been happening before he ever became the mayor. Like this is all of New York City problem. It lies on him. Obviously, he's the king, heavy is the head, right? He's the mayor, so yeah, it relies on him, but that. I don't believe that that's just a result of that task force. That's basically just a rewrite of what Eric Adams was doing. The bottom line is everything's speed. So how come the investigation into where the failure is? How come we don't have a speed? Was it the equipment that was used? Someone said here it was Timu steel. Eric Adams approved for trip to Turkey. Was it a result of the equipment they used and the materials they used? Is it a result of improper engineering and improper planning? Or is it a result of improper faulty construction of those materials and not following the plans? The bottom line is the failure starts, well, yeah, so all the above. So if it was in the initial proper planning and those permits, this is on Eric Adams. If it's in the approved materials, that's on Eric Adams. If it's in the fact that they weren't constructing it right, then that's on Zohran Mamdani. You know what I mean? And I think what you're going to find out is, well, I don't think you're ever going to find it out. I think we're just going to ask these questions and never going to get the answers to them. But I think if you ever really deep dive into it, and when people deep dive into it, when independent reporters continue to deep dive into this, what you're going to see is there were failures at every single level. And this project should have never went ahead. Again, largest construction of its kind. Where the hell was DOB? Why are they on scene yesterday? Why weren't they on the scene before that? Before we go any further, let's just get a message from our sponsors over at Kalshi. 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primary election outcomes and the biggest political storylines as they happen. Will AOC be the 2028 Democratic presidential nominee? He's moving up. Right now, AOC is becoming the 2028 Democratic presidential nominee is currently trading at 18%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $525. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code FINANCE to get $20 when you trade 20. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/risk. regulatory. So that's my whole point is that's the whole thing is I'm trying to say is that like it's a systemic failure at every level, dude. Like they got all these big plans. They got all these big plans, but they can't even execute on what's right in front of them. That's all I'm saying. Sheer, utter criminal negligence. It's so incompetent. It's criminal. That's New York City. And that falls on literally every single member of New York City Council, the mayor's office, the governor, the Department of Buildings, the FDNY. It falls on all of them. Falls on all of them because the corruption is so bad, dude. How many times did we hear that people either were paid off to sign off on building permits by the FD or that they were pressured by New York City elected officials to sign off on permits? How many times? I mean, it's happened in DOB. It's happened at the FD. All of this corruption is just coming back to bite everyone in the ass.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's corrupt because corruption is in a lot of ways it's expedience, right? It's instead of going through the process and going through the rules, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to pay you money to skip me on the line. I'm going to pay you to look the other way in terms of oversight of a project, in terms of safety measures. And to what you said, is it the materials they got? Is it the labor? Is it the plans? I think it's all of the above. The whole point is they wanted this done quickly, and they were going to cut corners to get it done, and that's the entire point of the speed task force. Okay, it's identify policies and procedures in the administration permitting processes of city agencies, as well as, let's scroll down a little bit. Right, it says strategies. Develop and recommend strategies to streamline these processes, to expedite processes, to facilitate the most efficient production of affordable housing. It's not affordable housing. It was luxury housing, right? And it's the corruption was to expedite the process. They wanted it done now, and they don't care if you got to cut corners to do it because it has to be done now, right? And the speed task force, like I said before, is not that different from Eric Adams' blast. Okay, and the blast task force was basically to do the same thing, streamline the entire process of building. Okay, get it done, get stuff done, right? And the blast stood for building and land use streamlining task force. This was Eric Adams' task force. Mamdani comes in on the first, and he basically starts up the speed task force, which is basically the same thing. It's streamlining procedures to expedite equitable development. Okay, but it's all corruption, and it's all to expedite processes and to cut corners. And now you're seeing the results of that corruption.
All right, let's finish up this press conference, and then let's move on to the other, what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming on, but
we are taking it minute by minute,
Sorry.
and I appreciate our city workers who have been on the forefront of that. Every few minutes, we are looking at a new assessment of the structure and of the possibilities and the options that we have in front of us. When it comes to the New Yorkers who call these streets their home, we are going to be in touch with them as soon as we have any updates. What I will say to them for now is thank you, because despite the impact on their day, they have responded calmly, they have responded with urgency. And to those New Yorkers who do not live in this neighborhood, I would say to steer clear of this area so that we can actually ensure the focus is on this response. We will be sure to keep the public up to date with any new developments as we have them. Right now, we're going to go back to work to ensure that all of these incredible city workers can do what they have been here doing since the morning, which is looking to keep us all safe. We are only going to allow New Yorkers to return back into these buildings when we are fully confident that they are safe for them to do so. That safety is paramount for us in every decision we're making right now.
All right, thank you so much.
There were corners cut by the developers. A union rep told CBS News that they were concerned that the company that won the bid was a non-union company, and that his workers who were members who had been working there said that corners were cut and that this was not an appropriate or proper construction for the security.
I think you heard from our DOB commissioner that there is an active investigation underway as to what brought us to this point. Our focus right now is on making sure that this site is safe, this building is safe, this neighborhood is safe. That
So thank you for paying your taxes. Thank you for giving us a salary. By the way, we're increasing all of our own salaries, the mayor and city council and the Department of Buildings, and everyone's going to get a nice big pay raise. So thank you guys, but you can't return home, and we don't know when you're going to be able to return home. But thank you, thank you. Honestly, unbelievable, dude. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. New York. I've been saying it for a while. New York City is facing decades of malfeasance, corruption, and complacency. The complacency part is that you have to keep you have to keep updating the city. You have to keep updating infrastructure. You have to keep servicing outdated infrastructure. The city has to keep moving, and it wasn't for a while, and now the city is trying to do all of that at once. Okay, the city should have been trying to maintain a healthy ecosystem, right? That means we have businesses coming in, we have people who are happy to live here and want to live in New York City and not move to Florida. We should have been doing all that all along, and we weren't. And now when the shit is hitting the fan, they want it expediently done, and it cannot happen. It's impossible.
So this is them early this morning inside the building. So this is a lot of workers in there now, and you see what they're doing. They're basically just putting emergency trusses into place, and to try to stop this building from moving and secure it. I don't know, man. I honestly think this should be that. I don't even know that they could secure it. Like I don't know. I guess anything's possible. They should be able to secure it, but this is very dangerous work right now. That's all I gotta say. This is super dangerous work, and a lot of stuff is being done with their fingers crossed. I'm telling you right now, a lot of stuff is being done with their fingers crossed.
Yeah. They can try, but like I said, they're going to run into several problems there. One of it is the local community. You're going to have concerns about that building being up, right? The other thing is that the insurance company is going to have concerns about that building being up. A whole bunch of stakeholders, the UN globalist term, are going to have concerns about that building going forward. That including the banks, the insurance companies, the investors. Who wants to be liable if that building, or if a portion of that building falls down and kills a pedestrian? If I'm mayor, I'm not exactly sure I want that building to be up. Now, we know these people in government are morons, so they don't think long term. They only think about their own their next election. But Mamdani should damn well be thinking about that, because if part of that building, if they decide to shore up the building, right, and then another portion of it falls down and kills somebody, God forbid if that happens, he is going to join Eric Adams in playing golf or whatever he's doing now that he's not mayor. Okay, he's gonna end up another one-term mayor if that building, if any part of that building falls and harms somebody. And the thing is, I think there's going to be multiple lawsuits if that building remains up there, regardless of what they do. And there's going to have to be some sort of hearing as to how we got to this point. And they're going to have to look into things like a speed task force and see what boxes weren't checked in order to quickly expedite this conversion. And oh, we didn't mention this, but keep in mind also that building had other oh, this isn't the picture I was looking for, but that building had other violations on it. Okay, so it had multiple violations already, and it's not the only one. There's been other buildings that they're trying to convert into from office spaces into residential living that have had violations on it as well. So you have to wonder, do these violations come because of them trying to expedite all of this and cut corners?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's the bottom line is that that's exactly what it is. That not only did they try to convert it from commercial to residential, but they tried to throw 16 floors on top of it and then basically compromise the entire structure of what they were trying to build on. I mean, that structure is compromised. Like that is not something. It's like, oh yeah, no big deal. I mean, look at that. Look at that beam. I mean, you could see the guys that were in there. You could see the beams, how they've collapsed and on the structure, the main structure that they're trying to build on. So definitely not something that we should take lightly at all. Hold on, I'm gonna bring up some drone footage, and I love how oh the drones. You're basically just getting eyes on it. That's what the drones are doing. There's I don't know if they have any drones with lidar where they're be able to detect any stress fractures or anything like that, but like you basically it's not really this crazy technology here. You're just getting eyes on it from the outside where it's hard for humans to access. That's all these drones are really doing is saying, okay, what does it look like? Has it moved? It was here at this point. Is it moved again? And just getting eyes where it's hard for humans to get to at this point when you're worried about a collapse. They make like this drone technology is like it's just it's the end all be all. It's not taking a whole photo of the building and running through X-ray vision and you could see where all the parts of the building have weakened. It's not. We're not there yet. That's all this is. It's just a drone sitting out there, getting eyes on it and showing showing the people on the ground. Okay, this is what it looks like up here.
Yeah, when you see them talk about drones, their obsession with the drones is because their buddies at Wall Street need the drones to be a successful thing. Drones, I've said before, are a solution in search of a problem. Yeah, they're good. They're a good tool, but you know, it's questionable whether they're a vital tool. But they're a great tool if your city is going broke and you need to replace with certain workers with drones. Okay, you need to replace certain jobs with drones, and also you need to quickly boom. You need a Wall Street boom overnight. So the drone companies, the chips manufacturers connected to the drones, the entire ecosystem. If you keep pumping drones, that entire ecosystem booms overnight.
Well, I think that it's great technology, and I think it's good to have. It's not replacing anybody, though. It's great, a supportive technology. So here's the buildings commissioner last night. Again, I think KB and NYC said that he's, extensive knowledge and extensive history in urban planning. So, I mean, I don't know if any guys are familiar with his sister, who was in charge of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' Racial Equity Task Force. But yeah, she's an interesting Linda Tigeni or whatever, Tigeni, however you want to say the name. Take a look at his sister. She's a piece of work too. So the grift rolls on. So let's hear what he's got to say last night.
I'll say that we were able to visit and get to the 21st floor this evening ourselves to inspect and look at the work that's been done. And we are feeling confident that many of the emergency shoring measures that have been put in place as a result of extensive discussions with the building owner, the contractor, or licensed professional is stabilizing the situation. They've also brought in a third-party engineer to verify and act as another set of eyes to ensure that we're looking at an intervention that is providing the stability that gave us the confidence to be able to allow people back in the building to install the emergency shoring, where we are not only at a point where emergency struts or jacks are in place to hold up and stabilize where the weak points are, but they are also installing new steel as another emergency intervention, which is creating stability and allowing workers and material to move into place and keep the building in a stable situation. We've been monitoring the building for many hours, have not seen any movement. We have monitoring positions set up outside and inside the building that's allowing us to track the situation, and if there is any movement or if we sense any movement, we have protocols in place to make sure we're quickly removing people outside the building to evaluate and reassess. But right now, we have been in a consistent, stable, and safe situation.
It's consistent and stable, yet you have blocks and blocks evacuated. It's not consistent and stable. That is a word salad. If it was, everybody would be allowed out. Traffic would be opened up. This would no longer be an emergency incident. So, again, New Yorkers are being lied to. Here's the other thing. The building's not moving anymore. Great. What are the pressures on the 20 floors underneath it? What's happening up top as they're putting pressure up now? You know, there's a lot of factors here, and anything that's happening this quick, you're not monitoring properly. If you're starting to go there, you're not monitoring the stress that's happening up top, and you're not monitoring the stress that's happening down below. If you're just monitoring right here, and the potential for collapse is just as high as it was yesterday morning. I don't believe anything they're saying right now. I'm sorry, I just don't. It doesn't make but logically, it doesn't even make sense. Never mind when you start to like think about it from a building aspect. Logically, it makes zero sense what he's saying here. No, we're good. We're stable. It's good. We're going to have people come in here. You know, everything's good. We're just going to keep this entire area shut down until further notice.
Yeah. Great comment. Two up and down. Great comment. You know, I got to pull up the spot on graphic for you guys.
What do you say?
But you're right.
Read out the comments because the people on audio can't hear them.
Yeah, he's two up and down is saying there's no drone that can replace a local 40 iron worker that is Mohawk Indian. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The drones can't replace humans, and that is the problem. These guys don't understand that we're going to need a better solution, you know, to costs than to just think we're going to replace a human with a drone. How about we actually look into all the wasteful spending and all the garbage that we throw money at in the city so that we don't have to try and replace a human with a robot, right? But along with that comment, Peter Blach, I'm pretty sure I butchered that last name. Peter, I'm sorry. But Peter is saying when you use non-union incompetent labor, you get what you pay for. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I can't necessarily disagree with that. But I think when you look at that, it's again goes back to expedience and cutting corners, which clearly has been going on here. Okay. Let me get this off the screen. But I think nobody wants to speak about the elephant in the room because there are massive consequences, again, like I said before, with tearing down this building. If we have to tear down a building, which I'll argue they have no choice at this point. All right. Massive economic consequences. Okay. Besides the $1 billion being lost, which may actually go up to $2 and $3 billion. But there is the long term. What this means is that the city's plan to convert office real estate will have to be slowed down a lot. And if that's slowed down, then what happens to the city's budget every year? Those projections of $6 million might actually end up being $20 billion. And my question is, where exactly are we getting that money from? Okay. This is why it's all connected, guys. It's all connected. If there's no revenue coming into the city, there's no contributions going into your pensions, right? And they're going to look to use the already funded pensions to help them, okay, to invest in their boondoggles to hopefully create a boom that in Wall Street or wherever else that they can use for their current fiscal problems. You see, it's all connected. You're not getting more cops because there's no money in the budget. And there's no money in the budget because they're losing revenue in things like commercial real estate, commercial office real estate. And now, because of this, we're going to have to scrutinize those conversions, and we're going to have to slow down those conversions, which means the revenue isn't going to be there when they projected it. So nobody wants to talk about this elephant in the room.
Well, I think we've spoken about it. But again, it's over here when the thing in front of their face, they can't execute on anything. When it comes to public safety, when it comes to hiring more cops, when it comes to retaining cops, when it comes to having competent building inspectors, doing competent inspections, signing off, reviewing plans competently, not expeditiously, they just balancing a budget, looking at things in a budget where like, oh, we don't need to spend this $1 billion on these fake public safety apparatus. We could take that and use that for things that we actually need. We don't need to spend another $1 billion on all of these mental health programs that have zero tracking of any type of metrics for success or anything like that. I mean, so basic functions aren't happening. So how would we expect them to plan properly for the future in a financial aspect? These are not competent people. Here's a clip that's been going viral. So someone on here said major failure on the architects and engineers. Look, that hasn't been proven at this point. It could also be just a major failure on the construction end of it, not on the architects, because you could be the best architect and engineer in the world if the construction crew building it can't follow your plans. I mean, it's gonna be pretty bad. But you, as the engineer and the architect, should be out on site ensuring that they are in fact building that correctly. So that's why I'm saying I think when you look at this as a whole, when you go back through, City of Yes, when you go back to the approval and the planning and the materials, the architectural, the engineer, and then what occurred on site, I think you're going to see failures at literally every single level that the New York City government did not catch, that the Department of Buildings absolutely did not catch. And I think if it happened here, it's occurring all over the city. It happened at the largest construction of its kind in New York City history. It means it's systemic throughout all of New York City construction right now. That's what that means. There should literally be a stop work order on everybody as a result of this, because what this proves is that DOB hasn't been out there doing their job. And what it proves is the City of Yes was a major, major failure. And why was that passed? And again, it always goes back to it. Crumbs.
Yeah, but that's why they don't want to talk about the elephant in the room. Because now you got to look at all of that.
Well, you think that they care about if the city collapses. They care about going to jail more than the city collapses, in my opinion. They're criminals. They're crooks and criminals. And they're not worried about 10, 15 years down the road. They're just not. Like, you can never get me to believe that Eric Adams or Zohran Mamdani care what's going to happen to New York City in 15 years. Adams will be in Albania. The boy Wanda will be in his little mansion in Uganda. They don't give a shit, dude. They're not these. They don't have all these massive plans like they're masterminds. In my opinion, they're not. They're criminals. They're crooks. They're liars. They're self-serving individuals. And I think it always, when you look at it, always goes down to crumbs. I sent somebody something yesterday. Somebody sent me. Danny Holkow had sent me something about Anthony Gaspipe Gasso. So Anthony Gaspipe, they called him Gaspipe because he liked to blow up cars and blow people up. He was a mobster out of Bensonhurst, and he He was involved in a lot of different things. Like, he was involved in a lot of different things. If you look him up, watch him. But one of the things that he was involved in is he was a hotel owner. You know what kind of hotel he owned? He owned a hotel that, guess what they did? They had homeless shelter contracts. And the same room that you could probably rent for $50 $50 a night at the time, probably even less, maybe even like $20 at that time, because it was in the early 90s, like 1992. He was charging the city of New York $3,000 a month per room. And does that sound familiar to anybody? So what happened? So the mafia went under. Well, supposedly. They went under. They all went to jail. They all ratted on each other. And the politicians took their place. Look, we've had reform in the police departments. We've had reform with the mafia. We got rid of the mafia. The police departments were systemically corrupt. We got rid of them. And, you know, the only place we haven't had any reform is in our elected offices and their appointed officials. So you saw corruption in city government be localized at the bottom, systemically corrupt from the bottom. Now you're seeing that it's systemically corrupt from the top, and it's everywhere. So it's just a huge grift, in my opinion. It's all a huge grift. I don't think these people are masterminds. I think that they're criminals. That's what I think they are. And I think they're low-level, dumb criminals, because when you think about it, the only reason they act the way they act is because they feel that they have the entire law enforcement structure in the palm of their hands, and they're not worried about being investigated. That's how I see it. I mean, and the fact that Eric Adams is walking around on the streets of New York today, or actually the streets of Albania today, proves that. They don't care.
Well, I got to do a slight pushback on that. I agree with what you're saying, but I have to do a pushback on the 15 years part. It's not 15 years away. It's, keep in mind, by 2032 they owe $39 billion to the pension funds. Now,
well, I don't think it's 15 years away. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they're not looking past the future. I agree with you. And if they think it's 15 years away, it's probably 3 months away. And we saw that with the healthcare saving fund, where they were using it for pay raises for the city, right? I said, you're going to bankrupt the fund. They said I'm lying. A year later, the fund was bankrupted because they thought that was 15 years down the road. At that point, they thought it was.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, that
they knew what I was saying was correct. They knew that they were going to bankrupt that fund. They didn't realize how quick they were going to bankrupt it.
Yeah, you know, so for you guys watching, there's been reports that the city is going to be in a cash crunch by November. So, but what I'm alluding to is the fact that the city owes $39 billion to the pension funds by 2032, right? Now, the city right now is projecting $6 billion budget shortage for that incoming years. So by the time we get to 2032, that's $30 billion the city will have needed to just stay afloat, you know, and that is before we get to inflationary pressures. Okay. So inflation is more than likely going to balloon those numbers beyond 30 billion. So where is the city going to get $69 billion by 2032? That's what I want to know. Okay. And where are they going to get it in light of the problem you're seeing here, which is now we're going to have to take a look at the city of Yes and the expediting of a lot of the city of Yes's agenda, which they hoped would have brought in some of that revenue. And by the way, just to show you how these are all connected, we've been talking about Rikers Island lately as well. And one of the things they want to do with Rikers Island, and Mamdani is back, he's pushing that as well. You know, okay? They want to get rid of Rikers Island so they could sell the property, okay? And it's been projected that would bring in $12 billion of revenue, right? Well, why do they want to do all that? Again, it's because they know what's coming. It's imminent, and they are desperate, okay? Desperate. And I've spoken before about what Kathy Hochul is doing to upstate, okay? New York City's problem is even grander, because we may even have to compete with our own state, because her agenda is to bring back jobs to Western New York and upstate New York. And you have to wonder, how much money is she going to keep pouring into New York City to help it out when she would like, ideally, for the young people here who are seeking jobs to go upstate and to work in the factories that she wants to build up Syracuse and Rochester and all those cities that she'd like to, that her mission is to, boom again.
So, and just another thing, we showed you guys those beams inside the building. Structural engineers are saying that the buckled columns, and I'm sure that you guys would agree with this, right? Whether you have a construction background or not, that they're likely not repairable and will need to be removed and replaced.
Yeah.
How are you removing and replace? And obviously, you would do that by putting up temporary and remove it. But like, this is going to cost so much money and so much time. It's unbelievable. It really is. So this is a union rep for the steam fitters. Steam fitters, very, pressurized buildings, very dangerous job. This is a union rep for them. Listen to what he had to say. That this clip went viral yesterday. It was on a lot of different news outlets reported this. I just see a lot of different cameras and microphones in his face.
We're steam fitters, local 638. We're doing the fire protection in this building. And what happened here was this building was renovated, and they were going to add another 16 stories to it. But at that point, you need to add more steel. And they obviously didn't add the right amount of steel. So the north side of that building is crumbling. The I-beams are bending like cigarettes in there, which is super dangerous. So I'm assuming they're going to evacuate everyone on the north side of 43rd Street. So, we're a union, steam fitters. The union iron workers went after this job. They lost it pretty much off profit is what they're looking to do. The contractor that's over here. So we're New York City. We build it right. We build it the first time. And they chose profit over safety and put my members and every construction worker over here in jeopardy.
Cliff, can you walk us through what's it going to take to get this back up to code, get this back safe?
You're going to have engineers in here like you wouldn't believe, making sure that everything is supported. And I don't know what's going to happen with the other side of the building now. Time will tell. How much did it sink? How much more is it going to sink? That's the question.
So you had members up there at the
All
time?
members right here.
They were up there. What did they see? What did they?
Cracking windows, bent beams, floor, concrete was falling from the roof below, and they brought it up, and then they had to evacuate the job immediately. So, and here we are now. We know that's the situation now. What we want is responsible construction in New York City. That's all we want. We don't need you to put profits over and crunch wages down and pay people less just so you can make a couple more bucks while renting your apartments out. That's what we want. So, and then look what happens.
We hear reports of the building potentially leaning over.
It's the walls that are currently being built in there. You have studs and you have sheetrock. They're bent in half right now. That's how much it's dropped on that side of the building. I have photos. I can send them to you guys. You can put them on whatever you want to do.
So the crew has known about this for a little while?
No, this just started happening today, and it happened fast. You know what I mean? Because they keep adding. And as you add, you put more weight. When you put more weight, that's what's going to happen when it's not engineered correctly or installed incorrectly.
Timeline-wise, can you walk us through how long you see this?
I don't see anyone coming back in this job for a month at least.
So I don't know, dude. I don't know. That is wild because you hear it from in here, and I'm just gonna say right now, I don't believe that there weren't signs that this was going to happen prior to that. I don't believe that guys that have been around construction for a long time, I don't believe that this was just a failure that happened yesterday. I think there was plenty of failures over time that people have witnessed. Maybe his guys didn't notice it. That's possible, but I don't believe for 1 second there weren't numerous people on that job that didn't know things aren't right. I don't believe that for 1 second. Mike.
Oh, I agree. This is I think this has been ongoing, and again, these guys cut corners out of desperation and corruption, and it's all part of the same conversation. And this is why, again, I get angry at our own unions for not speaking out about all of this stuff, because when you don't speak out about it, right? When the city loses money and they could no longer contribute to your pension. And, a while ago, we talked about Detroit. Detroit already set a precedent. Okay. If the city goes into emergency measures, then they could absolutely adjust your pension. Okay. All right. State law does not trump federal what is it, title, I believe it's Title 9 bankruptcy. Okay. So they can adjust your pension. Okay. This is why the unions have to act as gatekeepers of the city, because where the city goes, your pension and your retirement follows. Okay. But what have we seen our unions do? They remain silent when all the wasteful spending continues. They remain silent when people take exorbitant amounts of overtime that shouldn't be happening. They remain silent when all the BS was happening. And keep in mind also that Scott Monroe and the other union members, the LBA guy and Vinnie Vallon, all wanted Eric Adams to get reelected again. So instead of calling out the bullshit, they go along with it, and later on, they themselves are going to be begging for a bailout. Okay, so it's retarded. And before we go on, I just want to show you why this is ongoing. Okay, we mentioned about Eric Ulrich earlier, and so you guys get a quick background on him and why this corruption has been going on.
City official in Mayor Adams' administration, Eric Ulrich, charged with taking $150,000 in bribes during his time as commissioner of buildings and as a former New York City council member. 6 others have also been charged in the case. The mayor not implicated in any of this, but the district attorney of Manhattan has been looking into some of those who contributed to the mayor's campaign. With the story and the latest, here's NJ Burkett.
A bespoke suit was one of the many gifts that Eric Ulrich is accused of accepting during his brief tenure as New York City's buildings commissioner. He was not wearing it today when he took his seat at the defense table, accused of selling out his office and his influence in City Hall. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg.
Eric Ulrich, we allege, monetized each elected and appointed role that he held in New York City government, each and every one.
Ulrich is named in 5 separate indictments spanning 2 years, while he was a New York City councilman, an advisor to Mayor Adams, and City Buildings Commissioner. Department of Investigations Commissioner Jocelyn Strouber.
Thankfully, this investigation has not identified any public health or safety issues caused by the charged conduct. But make no mistake, the alleged criminal conduct does real damage.
Specifically, Ulrich is accused of helping his friends and associates by facilitating things like zoning changes and expediting inspections and certificates of occupancy. In some cases, even job placement. In exchange, prosecutors say Ulrich received more than $150,000 in cash and gifts. Among them, season tickets to the Mets and a sweetheart deal in a luxury waterfront apartment on the ocean in the Rockaways, allegedly provided by Brooklyn real estate developer Michael Kohler. Kohler pleaded not guilty today to bribery and conspiracy charges, along with 5 others who allegedly sought favors from Ulrich. Most, if not all, of the defendants were donors or fundraisers for Mayor Adams. Earlier this summer, 4 people were charged with running a straw donor scheme to raise money for the Adams campaign.
Yeah.
But he wasn't involved in it at all. It's just everyone around him is just corrupt, not him.
Yeah. So this was before Eric Adams himself was indicted. We know he was later indicted for similar things, with the Turkish, and Uzbek guy, So this has been going on for a while, guys. And, it's whenever, the main, I've said this before, that in the NYPD, whenever we look to get things expediently done and cut corners, it bites us in the ass. And now we're seeing it on a grander scale with the city. So if you're a rookie watching this right now, right? If you're being asked to do something and expedite it and cut corners, right? Usually you're told to get it done, and it's implied that you cut corners. It's never explicitly told to you to cut corners, okay? But if you're being told to do that, I think you should really think about it before you cut corners, because that tends to come back and bite us in the ass. And it's going to come back and bite the city in the ass right now, because there will be investigations for this. There's no getting around it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of people on here saying that it's only the addition that's compromised right now. That's absolutely wrong, dude. It's absolutely wrong. Whoever's saying that, it is the main building itself that's compromised. You know, Cobb says it here. It was built in the 70s, 33 floors. They added 15 floors. It's almost 50%. I can't imagine how the engineers allowed this original verticals were without being reinforced significantly. So again, where it failed was the 21st floor. 21st, 22nd, all the way up to the 28th floor. That is not the addition. That is the main building itself. That is the main structure itself. That is the bottom of the birthday cake. You know, the birthday cake, you build one layer, you build the next layer, you build the next layer. The main layer of the birthday cake is compromised. You know, and then I think Mike said, oh, you guys got to have the union reps on to further this conversation. Look, I'll be honest. I don't trust the union reps. I don't think they're any different from the police union. The fact that he was already alluding to that they'll be back in there within a month. How did you make that determination? How do you feel safe sending your guys back in there? When have you ever seen this happen before? When has this happened? When is this type of construction? When have we had a catastrophic failure like we just had on a building on this type? This is the first time we've ever done this in history. So you're already saying your guys are going back in there? I'd be saying my guys aren't going back in there. You know, but what's he worried about? He's worried about them getting work. He's worried about them being on the job, having work. I get that. But, you know, we're talking from a safety standpoint. We're talking from a public safety standpoint. We're not worried about people getting back onto that job and getting paid on that job. That's not our concern. That's a union rep's concern. So unless we had, I would love to have a structural engineer on here or somebody to go through it, and we could do that. I know enough people to do that and architects. But we're just talking from the overall standpoint right now. A lot of people aren't going to say what we're going to say here. And I mean, that's true when we talk about public safety, right? That's why we're consistently under fire by the NYPD, because we say the things that everybody knows to be true, but won't say them out loud, right? The dangerous world of asking questions or having an opinion. And the same's true here. Like, we believe that New York City is suffering a crisis of competency. They're suffering through sheer incompetence, sheer negligence, and blatant corruption. And as a result of it, this is a huge public safety failure. And again, is it possible that they're able to secure this building, secure all of the floors underneath it? Yeah, anything's possible. I think we could get anything done today. But do you trust the people that couldn't get it done right the first time are going to make sure it's done right the second time? I don't.
Great point.
I don't.
Yeah, that's a great point. I need to have the spot on graphic ready for that one. You know, but yeah, it's a great point. How do we trust that they're not going to try and expedite it again, right? Cut corners again. You know, so got it ready for you guys in the chat and for John next round. But I got to say, I'm sure Governor DeSantis, Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee and Greg Abbott of Texas are all like smiling today, you know, because I'm telling you, those guys must be on the phone with developers and bankers telling them, hey, look, do you see how it's impractical to convert all these empty office buildings in Midtown Manhattan? How about you build a nice new fancy one from the ground up, cheaper, with less BS in my state? Okay. And this is why I've been talking for a while, why New York City needs to compete. They need to realize that, we're no longer the high school. We're no longer in high school, and you're no longer that star quarterback in high school. Okay. There are other cities in the Sun Belt region that are booming right now, and we have got to get our shit together, okay, and realize that people, these businesses have options now. They can either go to Miami. You look at Miami. I was there last time I was there was in '94. No, in 2005, and I have to go back again just to see how that skyline has changed with all the buildings. It's starting to look like Manhattan itself down there. And now you're giving bankers, you're giving these corporations options to move their buildings or to construct new buildings and attract young talent there to their companies. And you know, the more we screw up is the more we give these other states and cities opportunities to benefit off of that screw up. So
And true to form, another campaign promise that won't follow through. Not that I think it should, but what happens the minute an emergency happens? Who does Mayor Mondani call on? Yep, you got it. The NYPD's Strategic Response Group, right? The unit that he said he was going to disband. He's the first unit that he goes to in the NYPD. I mean, the guy literally relies on the NYPD for every single function that happens in New York City. And he had the audacity to tell you that he was going to disband them because they're brutal and they harm, they go after First Amendment. Yeah, well, they look like a little pretty convenient that every day, every night, you call them out there every time, showing that you have zero clue about anything concerning public safety in New York City. So I just thought that was hysterical, seeing him call out once again, calling on the SRG to help him shore up and secure that area. Totally hysterical. Guess it went from his what did he say he was gonna do? He said what was it? He said as mayor, I will disband the SRG, which has cost taxpayers millions in lawsuit settlements and brutalized countless New Yorkers exercising their First Amendment rights. And then when he became mayor, he doubled down on that and kept saying that he was going to do it. But yet here we are. And every day, every emergency, he calls the SRG. And that shows you that these people do not know what they're talking about. They're complete, utter liars. I wouldn't trust them at all. New York Post is calling this the Leaning Tower of Midtown. 9 blocks evacuated. Supposedly, they've lessened that restriction, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that to be true. I think they probably have lessened it a little bit, but the majority of people are still displaced. And New York City government's doing nothing for the people that or the businesses that are displaced.
yeah. I saw a great comment here. Let me see if I could go. Yeah, Mike Freed says, "Well, don't forget the building in Miami that collapsed." Mike, that building that collapsed was built in the 1970s, and Florida has responded with changes to the law that force these condo associations not only to have reserves and not only to a better upkeep maintenance. They need better reserves in order to have the funds there to upkeep maintenance, but they've also passed laws in terms of inspection to prevent that from happening. I ain't saying that Florida is a paradise now, but I'm just saying that when we were the high school quarterback that was winning, right? And we, even after high school, our heyday, which I would say was in the Bloomberg era, we still walk around with that arrogance and that cockiness as though we're still in high school and we're still the quarterback. And we let these younger guys come up and now they're competing to attract the attention and the mind share and businesses and young people that we once did. And I'm just simply saying that we have to do better. And in order, we have to realize now that it's not a guarantee that young people want to automatically come to New York City. I'll also add to that, when you look at culture and entertainment in America, because entertainment is also culture, right? In the old days, a lot of movies used to take place in New York. They used to be set in New York. And I think that also helped to influence young people to want to come to New York. And not just young people, but people all over the world want to come to New York. And I don't see that anymore. And is that a problem for New York City? Damn right it is. Okay. Because you always need a new, steady, competent, and the best people coming to New York, to keep the ecosystem healthy. and that's not what's coming. Yeah, I see that too, Brian. Brian Berthold says New York is just little illegalville right now. Yeah, yeah, you're getting illegals and people who can't contribute to the the revenue stream, the tax revenue stream, and contribute to making New York continuously prosperous. You need a healthy ecosystem is the bottom line.
That's a good analogy though. So it's like me thinking I'm the same guy with a Caesar haircut with thick black hair,
Yeah.
6-pack, could still dunk a basketball, could still run 10 miles hungover. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not that guy no more. It's just it's
Yeah.
what it is.
I mean,
I'm
you said it
old.
yourself. You gotta keep hitting the gym. You
Yeah.
gotta keep doing maintenance. If you don't do maintenance, guys, what happens to you? You become. We talk about this a lot with the cops on duty, right? If you don't do maintenance, you're gonna become an overweight cop, and then you're one heart attack away in a foot pursuit from from even worse. Okay, so you always got to do maintenance. You always got to monitor what's going on around you and keep up. Yeah.
It's true, bro. It's true. All right, last report on this, and then we'll start heading over the super chats. Here he is again on Fox. I'm just curious what else he had to say.
We're working on a project. The beams were bending, concrete was falling, walls were collapsing. So I cover the east side of Manhattan for Steam Fitters Local 638. So I came over, make sure not only our members, but every construction worker on site was out of the job. And outside and safe and everything. We made sure everybody was outside. So I don't think anyone's going back in this building for a while. This is not something you typically see in New York City. You have one of the best labor forces in the world. So to have a building have steel bending while it's under construction, to me, it's a lack of vetting your contractors. To me, it's a lack of not picking safety over profits.
Wow. That is quite a statement coming from you, Cliff. This is Jillian. When you arrived on scene this morning, what was your top tier, most urgent priority?
The most urgent priority is to get every construction worker out of that site.
So, I mean, he says it there again. But if you look at that beam, man, that is, and he's 100% right. It looks like it bent like a cigarette, that beam. And again, that's on the 21st floor, that beam is. So what's the pressure like on those bottom 21 floors? It's got to be immense. There's got to be immense pressure. And someone said, I said that the drones aren't these technological great things, but someone said they do have LiDAR and they're able to assess some of the facade and some of the outside of the building. But again, they're not getting that whole picture of that whole building in structure and be able to see where there's stress fractures or weather pressure in there. You're not going to be able to do that without internal monitoring. And there's no buildings currently being built with those internal monitoring systems. So yeah, you're just basically, like I said, you're getting your eyes on it. You're getting an overview from the outside, maybe a little bit more in depth, but you're not being able to see the building as a whole and what's happening in it currently as it sits now, even though it's been deemed safe. Because think about it, it was deemed safe that morning when those guys were working. So apparently it wasn't that safe. So, and you got anything else on this before we start to wrap this one up?
Yeah, I just have one other thing. I don't know if it's gonna come up in time. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to make light of the fact that in China, the housing market is crashing right now, right? In a lot of ways, they have the reverse of our issues, right? I won't go into that, but I just want to point out they're letting their housing market crash, right? And one of the reasons is because their housing has been used as an investment vehicle for a lot of people. A lot of people put their savings into housing because it's been appreciating for a while. You can see the charts yourself. So now their government is letting their market crash, right? And it's come up. It's one of their policies is that houses. They've stated their houses are for living, not for speculation. The reason why I'm posting this is because I saw a comment from Mike M, who said that he made note that in Miami, it's rumored that the houses were Miami was built because of laundering of drug money, and that is correct. A lot of the buildings were, because it was a much slower town in the 1970s than in the later drug boom of the 80s. And that's because the drug dealers started parking their money in buildings in Miami, and a lot of it luxury buildings too, right? But that's not much different from New York City, because luxury real estate in Manhattan are used as a means to launder your money. If you're like a Chinese billionaire or you're a Russian billionaire, you funnel your money into you park your money into luxury real estate, because it's a way of fighting inflation if you were to keep it in your local dollars, your local currency, right? So it's not much different from New York, right? But it's because of this why they're probably they expedited this process there, because they were hoping that they would turn those office buildings into luxury real estate, where these wealthy people would then launder or park their savings into these real estate, and the resulting property tax will help close the city's forthcoming gaps. So my point here is that it's not much different from real estate in Manhattan and in a lot of other places around the world. People use it as an investment vehicle, and again, I really hate that a place like China is doing things that we should be doing too. The best, unfortunately, the best course of measure, I think, would be to let the housing prices crash, but they're not going to let that happen, because a lot of investments are tied into this, including pensions.
So I mean, you basically said it, but what's your prediction? Does the construction continue? And if so, when?
My prediction is it doesn't continue. There's going to be too much pushback from different people, from the insurance company, from the investors. Nobody wants to invest in this crap no more. Nobody wants to be liable for that building falling and killing somebody or destroying other property. I think construction, they shore it up, but that building is going to have to come down now. And where, again, the ball started rolling, and it's gone from a pebble to now a massive boulder. And the longer we try and get away from this boulder hitting, is the bigger the problem becomes, So the best course might be to let the boulder smash into the building, and then let's start from ground zero again. So with that said, we're going to have problems in Midtown. We're going to have bigger problems for the budget. And those people who invested in that, they're about to lose $1 billion up front. They're about to default on that. And the bank is going to foreclose on that property. And the bank themselves is going to have to write off massive losses, which I think are going to hit the market. And this is why online, I made a tweet to some financial guys that I watch, like George Gammon and Luke Groman, and I asked them if this might be the trigger for a market crash as well.
Well, let me ask you, like, here's the other thing, because I mean, like, I'm looking at it overall as a whole, just not on that building and that area. What do you think needs to be done with the construction projects currently in place throughout New York City?
I think they have to stop. They have to stop it. They have to look go back and look at all of them. We have to scrutinize all of them. You do not want one of these buildings coming down and killing people, or collapsing in on itself, killing construction workers, or creating even bigger problems for the city. It's just, like I said, you can't stop this boulder now.
I spoke to a couple of people, and they said highly unlikely that it was engineered or the architecture was, or it was highly unlikely that it was engineered wrong. And I would say maybe traditionally I would agree with that, but I think with the loosened restrictions, there may have been things that the engineers engineered it improperly because of the loosened restrictions. They were like, well, we don't need to do this. And we could save money here. And so the architectural design come into question as a result of the city of yes and the loosened restrictions. So I would traditionally agree that, structural engineers are pretty damn good at their job, and they haven't had any issues building in New York City in the past. So, but I think, you know, there's a lot of scrutiny that needs to get put on all of the current construction, all of the city of yes, what it's done. I mean, you know, we haven't done it with bail reform, so I don't know that we'll be able to competently do it here either, right? Because you would think with bail reform, with all of the rise in crime that happened and the violent crime and all of the people that were unable to keep in jail the repeat violent offenders, that we would have been able to say, okay, this is where we failed in the law. Like, we need to go backwards. And we haven't been able to do it there. So I don't think that they'll be able to actually do it here either. Because again, this, at the end of the day, this falls on your elected officials and they're appointed. Like, however you wrap this up, there is a competency crisis in New York City, and it's all politically created. Crime's on the rise in New York City. It's all politically created. Transparency is being removed from the public, and it's all politically created. Just want to go back on Monday's episode real quick, where we said that more than likely the detective was shot in the back and we were taken down after that he was shot by friendly fire. You know, again, I don't like to use that term, but just for lack of better words, blue on blue, whatever you want to call it. We haven't heard a statement from NYPD police commissioner after it was reported in the Post, hours after our episode. It was reported in the Post that in fact it was. We haven't heard a statement from the police commissioner. We haven't heard a statement from the chief of department. We haven't heard a statement from Scott Monroe. And I think that it's absolutely disgraceful and pathetic. And it just shows everything that we're talking about here. It's all intertwined. It's all intertwined. You have all the wrong people in charge of all the wrong things. Your mic's up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying I agree, and I think that there's a lot of questions about there should be a lot of questions about this entire incident. And if you can see, yes, you guys can see the rounds, the damages. Those all look like the bullet exited the vehicle to me.
No, go back.
Yeah.
That looks like an exit to you? That looks like an entry to me.
No, it's exit. The bullet, the round exiting creates a crater. The entry is clean.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So there's a lot of concerns I would have about this going forward, about detectives, you know, working multiple details and being exhausted, and now being put into situations where things may happen, and you want, and things may happen, they may not be alert for it, and you get incidents like this happening.
Well, I think that was part of the reason that they didn't initially call it what it was, is because I think what's going to happen, you know, like when cops are involved, like, look, as it sits right now, the NYPD is probably one of the least transparent in like as it relates to telling people actually what's going on. But as far as keeping data, they're the absolute best that we have in New York City. And so, like, when a cop is involved in a vehicular accident, one of the questions is, like, what tour did he start? How many consecutive hours did he work, or he or she work? And that's done to see, like, well, is there a time frame, so that they could pull that data later and see, is there a time frame that it becomes less safe for cops to be driving, like as if they're working for X amount of hours, right? Now, I don't know if that ever gets divvied out. But obviously, it hasn't, because they'll throw you out there for 24 hours, not even thinking about it. But they're collecting that data, and I would have to assume that I never worked in a firearms investigation division, which was a newer division created under Bratton, which falls under the first deputy commissioner, which is basically internal affairs. They claim that they're not, but internal affairs used to do the shootings, them along with inspections. Now it's the firearms investigation division. I would assume that they're also tracking that data, like what tours these guys work and how often they're involved in shootings. And when you look at that, they had already been on a detail for over 12 hours. And now they get reassigned into the middle of Brooklyn, basically doing anti-crime work when you have 4 special victims investigators who are already overworked and tired, work throughout the whole weekend, and you send them there. And then what was the factor? How did that factor into the friendly fire shooting? And I think any reasonable person would say that being tired, overworked, and exhausted 100% factors in. And so I think at the end of the day, the reason they weren't forthcoming with that data, because it makes them look bad. It makes their judgment look bad. It exposes the fact that we're understaffed, and they've been lying to you about that. And I think it exposes New York City and the NYPD to further liability by the detective. And I hope that he holds them accountable.
Yeah, I hope he beats the union leader he's supposed to be, you know. But sadly, I'm not gonna hold my breath for that to happen, you know. So we're gonna keep on banging the drums until either the guy is still active, get the courage to not reelect him, or he actually wisens up. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, no statements, and I think it's disgraceful. So, all right, we're gonna get to the super chat. Super chats is if we didn't get to any questions or comments, we'll get to them here in the super chat. So anybody that wants to interact with us, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, come over to our YouTube at The Finest Unfiltered, drop a super chat, and we'll get to it. We always get to them at the end of every show. But we had about 600 people on here with us this morning. If you could do us a favor, like, share, subscribe wherever you're watching. If you could share out, we appreciate it. If you're on audio, if you give us a 5-star review, we'd appreciate. Helps move us up in the algorithm. We're obviously, as much as we continue to grow, we're obviously still being suppressed. I mean, and everyone saw that on Monday. That show was absolutely flying. Even after we were taken down, we still maintained an audience of around 3,000 people. So, but it was flying also on YouTube. That cost us a lot of subscribers. That cost us a lot of money. That cost us a lot of different things. So if you could help us, it's just a click of the button. We greatly appreciate it. So let's get to the super chats. Appreciate everybody for sticking with us this morning. And like I said, as always, anybody heard anything, hears anything, you don't like it, you want to reach out, you got something to add, you're a professional in this field and you got something to add, you think we missed a mark on something, let us know. We appreciate it. www.thefinestunfiltered.com. All right. So Cobbs 3506, he says verticals become thinner as you go higher in floors. While the lower verticals can handle increased loads because they are bigger, higher ones can't. That may be the cause. Only time will tell. That's not accurate as to what happens. It might be accurate as to what you're saying, but that's not what happened because, again, the building was designed to be 33 floors. Right. And then the addition, like I said, it was a birthday cake style addition. Right. So you got the main base, then you got the upper base coming on. So the main beams are higher. Right. Oh, I get what you're saying. So you're saying as they went higher in that building, they thinned out those beams? Possible. I don't know. But that should have been shored up and that should have been strengthened prior to going higher. So the main structure is the one in question, the 21st floor, that those beams crumbled, which means they're not supporting the weight above, which means that below is getting tremendous pressure, even more pressure because those beams failed. So the pressure's falling down, and I'm assuming it's falling down not just on those beams, but on the facade and everything else as well, and all the trusses. So I personally going to sit there and say that nothing's secure at the moment, and it's very dangerous work what they're doing. So again, I think when we look back at all of this, you're going to see systemic failures in literally every single area of this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we got an entire system that broke down there, and we're seeing the consequences of it now. And we'll be. Trust me, this is going to be a big issue going forward. I don't think there's any way we could get around it now. There has to be investigations. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be infighting amongst the developer, the banker, and the real estate owners going forward. So, neither one of them wants to take the blame or the L from this, and the L being $1 billion at least. So
Staten Guy 321 says, use a pic of the building for his campaign. Nothing works. It's blatantly dangerous. Nobody did their job, and we're being lied to. We're being lied to saying it's all going to be fine when obviously it isn't. Yeah, 100%. You know, they downplayed that the same way they downplay the shooting, the same way. I remember, if you don't remember last Labor Day with Adams, when there was a mass shooting at the Labor Day parade and he completely downplayed it. He's like, yeah, no, everything went according to plan. I'm like, oh, you had a mass shooting on a parade route. That was part of the plan? I didn't know that. Maybe the parade goers should have known that, you know.
yeah.
So, yeah, socialism works, people, you know, and it's rocking and rolling. Anthony says, good show today. Keep keeping us informed. We appreciate you, brother. Nolan says, John, we need to talk again about what we talked about. Standing by when you're ready. Nolan, stop breaking my balls, bro. I'm busy. All right. Staten Guy 321. Everybody is an expert when things go wrong, but not when they are planning. I mean, that's the thing. The same people that caused the problem are now supposed to save us from the problem. I mean, again, I look at that press conference and I ain't confident. And if anybody is, I question you, you know, and I'm sure the rest goes for the rest of you too. Hobbs says crumbs for plan sign off, not inconceivable at all. I mean, we would be right. We would be literal morons if we didn't think that there was some form of corruption. And we would be morons to think that the city of Yes didn't have a kickback in mind as to why they wanted this. You know what I mean? I mean, it's blatant. It was everywhere. It's everywhere. It remains everywhere. Nothing's been done to stop it. And I'll say it. They're all in on it because you know what? Ulrich was a Republican. Ulrich was a Republican. You don't think there's other little Republicans, other little weasels out there that were involved in all this? We know they are. And I would bet even one fat guy from Staten Island too. Probably not any longer in there, but I would bet somehow, some way, he's tied into a little bit of it. You know, seems real concerned about money.
Yep.
So Cobb said the original legacy columns on the 21st floor were essentially crushed from above because they were never structurally reinforced to support the immense weight above the newly added residential stories. I mean, that's what it seems like to me, brother. And then the question is, could the bottom support? You know, Nolan says, I sent an email to YouTube requesting the Finest Unfiltered be restored. I think it worked. Thank you for your support, brother. Oh, and thanks everybody for retweeting it and doing all that stuff. Actually, YouTube did reach back out to me via X. So I appreciate everybody that commented and said anything to YouTube. So shout out to YouTube, Nolan. Appreciate it. That's how we were able to go live today. I didn't know. Like I said, they said we were banned. It said either temporary or permanently. It did not tell us. So I was like, yeah. But for those of you that haven't, if you could do us a favor, go over to our Rumble at the Finest Unfiltered. We also just started a Kick stream. I guess this is a newer one for the younger kids. If you go over to Kick at the Finest Unfiltered as well, we'd appreciate that. On X, we're at the Finest Cast. On Instagram, we're at the Finest Unfiltered. We also stream on my name on X as well. Facebook, we have New York's Finest Return Unfiltered podcast. We have that page go live. So if you guys just do us a favor, follow us on all those places so that if we ever do get taken off of one of them, at least you'll be able to get access to us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, we appreciate that. We appreciated all of you who tweeted at YouTube as well, and thank you again, Detective Nolan.
You know, Staten Guy says, if they are fumbling a structure that didn't collapse yet like this, what happens if we get another 2001? Also seem to be doing everything we can security-wise to have another 2001. Scary, scary. You know, there was a lot more competent people in place when 9/11 happened. like we said, under De Blasio, under Adams, and now under Mondani, they've been flying the plane blind for a long time, and they're saying that we're hoping it's going to crash when they're literally skimming the ground right now, and we're flying on one engine while we're leaking oil. It's and they're telling us not to be concerned, that it's us hoping that they crash the plane. It's like, no, we're not hoping it. We're just in the plane, bro. It's leaking oil. You got one engine left. You already blew the other engine. The rotor's not working. The pilot doesn't know how to fly a plane. He's got no license to do it. The crew doesn't know what they're doing, and we got no parachutes, and we got no life jackets, and the plane itself wasn't engineered correctly. So we're just calling it like it is, and you're 100% right. It's been very scary for a long time.
Yeah. I won't get to it today, but this was Eric Adams at another building. He put this up on April 3rd. Here he is at a building on 135 West 50th Street talking about conversions again.
Play it.
You know, in life, there's a gift that keeps on giving, and I'm here at 135 West 50th Street. This is a building that is going to be converted into housing, hotel, little office. This was part of our city of yes.
Oh, and by the way, you see that guy with the hat in the back of him? That's Brock Pierce again, fellow Club Epstein member, Brock Pierce.
How much did Adams get for this? Did he get any New York City token, or like what did he get for this?
Yeah, you gotta wonder, right?
Yeah.
Gotta wonder.
And the legacy of City of Yes is going to continue to grow. Hats off to the buyers that saw the vision that we passed it, to the Dan Garodniks, the Maria Torres Springer, the whole team that pushed through, Tiffany Raspberry, that whole team. You are going to improve the lives of working class New Yorkers. The City of Yes is a gift that keeps on giving.
Oh my God.
The
gift of death,
keeps
bro.
on giving, huh?
Fucking bush, bro. Whoever invested in the City of Yes, rip your tickets off.
50th Street. This is a building that
Are you fucking kidding me? Could you just play the end one more time? The gift that keeps on giving.
The whole team that pushed through, Tiffany Raspberry, that whole team. You are going to improve the lives of working class New Yorkers. The City of Yes is a gift that keeps on giving.
Please send that to me. Please send that to me.
Even while no longer being there, Eric Adams still gives us great.
God.
He
my God, bro. He was the kiss of death, bro. They should have evacuated the construction site right after that video came out. It should have been like, forget about it. It doesn't work. It's over. Get it out of here.
Yeah. And let me see if I can look up the violations at this building now before we close out here.
Yeah. All right. I'll read. You look for that building. It was oh shit, I wrote it down somewhere. I don't know where it was. 135 West 30th or West 50th?
Yeah.
West 30th. West 50th, right?
Yeah.
I can't even read my own handwriting.
It's West 50th, 135 West 50th.
Yeah. Look that up. See what violations they got at that one. Unfucking real. Unbelievable. That is absolutely hysterical. Cobb said, John, that's a very fair analysis of the situation. Don't know which part you're talking about, Cobbs, but we appreciate you being here with us, bro. Mon Samurai said, you're soft as. I'm not going to curse again because I cursed enough. With that answer, Marlon. He's mad at you again. Mon Samurai.
And Marlon the Samurai. He didn't like that answer when I said about her disheveled look.
I don't blame him. I agree. You're right, Mon Samurai. I'm with you. Staten Guy 321. He says, if this mayor can't make a cute post or inject some political statement, he is incompetent. Perfect microcosm for the city scared and unprepared people. We need leadership for crisis, and we get bumbling and sloppy shirts. Undone hair, disheveled, hungover people. Yeah, absolutely sick, dude. Totally sick. So Nolan, he says, every time I watch the Mondani, a Mondani press conference, the song by the Police starts playing in my head. Giant steps are what you take. Walking on the moon. I hope my legs don't break. Walking on the moon. They need a video with that. We need a video to get that along. But that is some stuff right there, man. Really. That is unbelievable. NYPD 8311 says, always enjoy the show live, if only for an hour. My nephew tells me how well received you guys are in commands. Wish show was around in my day, but it wasn't needed. We had great leadership. Yeah, I think I think everyone thinks that we're hated, and I think for a while I thought that too until like I just started walking around like New York, like after all the attacks started. That was like, then this was like 3 years ago, by the way. And I'm like, no, it's not that the rank and file cops don't like us. I mean, they don't like another podcast, and I don't blame them, and they shouldn't. I mean, because but it's not the rank and file cops, not captain down, even inspectors. They love the show. And they like us, and I think even when they don't agree with us, they understand that like these conversations need to be had. It was always just a small group of incompetent, bumbling, corrupt idiots at the top that didn't like the show, and it made it seem like the entire department was against us. And then when I walk around, it's never like that. We get a lot of love. I get a lot of love, honestly, wherever I go. I get love in Florida. I get love in whatever. I mean, people, like I said, even if they traditionally don't agree most of the time, they still appreciate the conversations. And I know for myself, I'm probably a hard guy to agree with most of the time. So so I don't hate anybody for disagreeing with me. So but yeah, I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you checking in, weighing in. And then Cobb says, possible the reinforcements are in the plans, but someone cut corners and didn't put them in. If so, there's criminal failure to it and inspect it. Yeah, again, dude, I think, I think the city of Yes may alleviated some criminality from some stuff. So, and that's going to be a problem. I think that needs to be highly looked at. Obviously, were the plans followed? What were the plans? Were there any failures in the plans? What was the design? Was there any failure in the design? What were the materials? Were any of those materials okayed because of the city of Yes that traditionally wouldn't have been? Were any corners cut in the design, in the architectural or engineering aspect of it because of the city of Yes? Those things need to be identified 100%. And then construction-wise, what part of the plan wasn't followed, or what part of the plan was improperly installed, or part of the equipment. So there's a lot of things here. It definitely should be treated as a criminal murder investigation, and it should get down to the real nitty gritty with everything. This should be just as important as any homicide investigation that we've had. Again, this is the largest construction project of its kind in New York City history. We're being told possibly even the entire nation. And so this is going to have a lot of implications, and this could kind of go down. This could maybe go down as one of the most largest construction blunders in all of history. So, I mean, yeah, I think that there needs to be a huge investigation into this. What I'm seeing from right now is I'm seeing rushed, and I'm seeing a lot of finger crossing, and I just hope everybody's safe. I'm going to be praying for all of our first responders. I'm going to be praying for all the construction workers and all the people that were led into failure, honestly. So, yeah, appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So, this is the building. Not much so far, but there is one for it's one for 2020. Date entered. Yeah, 2026. This one was put in at January 22nd. Construction is going on without right permits. Tampered with gas line without permits. I report construction that's causing the. Yeah, not much.
But you got to remember too, like I don't even take that into play, because you got to remember too, if you look at what happened after Adams did away with the March program, and he put in the nightlife, the mayor's office of the nightlife, and then
Mhm.
the mayor's office of the nightlife head, the commissioner, went into NYPD Comstat and threatened all of the ballless, cowardly, spineless police executives that they better not be making any notifications to the SLA unless it comes through him. And then they and then not even weeks later, they found out that that office was acting as part of a racketeer and extortion ring, and they all complied. There hasn't been really any notifications to the SLA, State Liquor Authority, after that. And like I said, at the time, that was ripe for corruption, and I didn't even know all that stuff happened. And sure enough, we saw all that happen. And so I wouldn't put it past that once the city of Yes came into play, that all of these Department of Buildings inspectors got a good talking to. That you better not be going after XYZ, these buildings. This is my good friend Brock's building. You're not going to go here. They're going to get carte blanche. And so we've seen that over and over again. So I don't even care if there is violations there or not. I'm more concerned with more than the violations. Were there any complaints made? And that's the stuff I want to see. That's the stuff I want to see. Were there any complaints made because they might not have followed through on it, and they might not have followed through because they were bullied by a systemically corrupt criminal organization that was running New York City, and for the most part continues to run it.
Yeah, and these are this is the company that owns it. So you can see do you guys see how this is all connected to Wall Street and why everything is connected? Okay. And how, none of them wants this to come down. But if it comes down, there's going to be cascading problems due to leverage and due to how connected everything is. So,
yeah. Nolan says the slander show is circling the drain, and they know it. Not my concern. I don't know. So doesn't matter. But all right, people, we appreciate everybody. We had a lot of you guys with us today, 622 people. Thank you for staying with us. I know it was a little different than our traditional show, but it really relates. We're consistently talking about the incompetence and the blatant corruption coming out of the NYPD at the top. And this is at all levels of New York City government and every New York City agency and every function. There is a competency crisis, and it's literally at this point it's just too big to ignore. And just a little message for the police commissioner and Scott Monroe: those are absolute embarrassments. The fact you haven't made a statement is disgusting, and you ran to the media for more fluff. It's an absolute joke. And whether you want to admit it or not, everything that we're saying is right. So, Marlon, what do you got before we run out of here?
Yeah, one last thing I wanted to bring up, right? This would be quick. I received this in the mail yesterday, and considering the EMS response times, which we talked about, are way up, right? And we talked about how within 6 minutes, permanent brain damage starts to happen. At 9 minutes, it's highly probable that permanent brain damage happened. EMS response times are at 11 minutes now. Okay. So, with me receiving this in the mail, I'm sure other people got this in the mail too, right? But my question is this the city just throwing its hands up and saying, you got to be EMS now? Help your own community out now. Carry around Narcan. And if you see a guy ODing, you got to spring into action. We can't help you. You're the EMS now. You know that movie Captain Phillips, right? Where he says, I'm the captain now?
Yeah.
Well, you're the EMS now. Help you figure this shit out your own self. To me, when I saw this, that's what I'm thinking. And I just don't like it. Okay.
Well, Adams told you have to start leaning into volunteerisms. So here we are, volunteerism. So remember we made all those memes. You're your own school safety, your own garbage person. Remember that? Those were hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
guys. But again, we thank you for joining us. We always appreciate it. We appreciate your super chats. And, you know, it's Wednesday. 2 more days until we can chill out on the weekend. You know, some of us, not all of us, have the weekend off. But in either case, remain safe, stay alert, and, you know, just have a great day and have a great rest of the week. We'll see.
Oh, one last thing about Friday. I'm not sure I'm going to be on Friday, and I'm not even sure we're going to be up. So we'll put something in its place. We'll figure something out if I'm not able to do it. I'm going to be headed back to Florida soon. I've been here for a month, and I'm tired, and I want to go home. So, yeah. You know, I'm sick of living out of a suitcase, basically. So, yeah, I got to get back. And my kids got a bunch of events I got to get them back for. So I might not be on Friday. So more than likely, I'm not going to be on Friday. So we'll figure it out. We'll keep you updated. We'll let you know. We did miss the Jack Greco, 6'1". He said, just add another floor, kid. Don't worry about it. That's what it's going to be. And I think Eric Adams, again, he just made the moment again. He's mush. Eric Mush Adams. He said it best. The city of yes is the gift that keeps on giving. And here it is. That's the gift that's going to keep on giving. And I think for decades to come, unless we start to correct the ship. So thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate you.
John, don't forget the executive perspective. Don't forget, guys, executive perspective tonight at 5:05.
Tonight at 5:05 p.m.
So,
Ron and Rob.
See you guys then.
All right, guys. Take care. Oh, wait, I almost forgot to do our thing. Hold on. My brain's not working anymore. Here we go. All right, we're out of here.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?